Hello. Hello. Aloha. Howdy. Guten Tag. Good morning, afternoon, and or evening. Gamers, and themers. You're right, that is not on. I knew I was missing something. I was hesitant to go unmute. I'm like, I'm missing something here. And I couldn't think of what it was. That was it. That was absolutely what I was missing. Yo, what's good, Nerd Josh? The Tekken 8 Future Master. In my own stream chat, I can't believe it. How could I be so blessed on a Sunday like today? How's the Kuma life treating you? Assuming you're still playing Kuma. Assuming nothing got the script flipped on you. Thank you for bringing your community in with mine. Happy to have you all here. My name's Ryudo, variety streamer on twitch.tv.com. But since you're coming from the fighting game side of things, you might know me from certain things like commentary on Guilty Gear, commentary on Super Turbo, and commentary on a variety of games that aren't the main games right now. Doing everything but fighting games on this channel here. But we're on a completely low-key aspect today. So, as of the last few streams that we've been doing a Mr. Chill and Watch, we've been watching this very long Fallout retrospective that is literally 9 hours long, so we're just breaking up into parts because there's no way my ass is sitting down for 9 hours and watching literally anything. But if you're on the fighting game side of things and you want a cool, chill place to go to chillax at and have a very good storyteller, Nerd Josh is absolutely that dude. So check him out if you haven't already. Give him some love if you haven't already. One of my favorite people to hang out with at tournaments whenever I can. I absolutely love Nerd Josh. And he's a hugely worthy follow. But let me catch up here on chat side of things here. What's up, Sandox? Maybe the real Gran Turismo is the grand friends we made along the way. Maybe it's just Grand Blue. I don't know. I don't drive cool cars. Actually, I do drive a cool car. That's a lie. I said that out loud like, wait, no, I really actually like my car a lot. Good to see you, Sandox. I was just thinking about you this morning. It's like, God, I have not seen a Sandox stream in what feels like forever. I miss Sandox. Hope he's doing well. Also, what's up, Kefka? Thank you for the 15 days, just over 2 weeks of subscription. I greatly appreciate you. I hope you're having a good one. Strong Bad Man added something to the cool list. It might have to do with the message I saw a little bit later in the chat, but we'll wrap around to that here in just a bit. Howdy to you, Rambro. Good to see you as well. Polar Bear. I don't know which OST you were talking about, since this is like a mix. But if you're talking about this entire mix itself, yes, absolutely incredible vibes. If you're talking about a specific OST, I mean, the answer is probably going to be yes, incredible vibes. I have listened to very little OSTs on Disc 5 of the Low Poly Breaks mixes. But it is damn good. So do we have time to watch something before we fall out? What you have on your mind there? Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your secrets, Strong Bad Man. I would like to know more. I'm sure it's on the list, but I have you right here, and that's an extra click for me. I have to get rid of the cool background if I click on anything else. It is very long, Kefka. It's so long. And it's been so long since I've been able to get to watch something on a Sunday because I've been so damn busy with travel as of late and then actually being gone as of late. I was making the preparations to cook something ideally today, but the place I had to pick up some wine to cook with. But the place I go to that's local is also a beer bar as well. So I popped in. I mean, they know me pretty well over there. and she told me about what they have on tap, and she's like, oh, this one right here though, the salted caramel porter is extremely good. So I said, you know what, heck it, pour me one. And it was extremely good. It was also like 9 or 10%. So I'm also like, I'm feeling lazy now. I don't want to cook today anymore. Not that I'm going to be going without food or anything like that, but I'm very lazy now. Yo, what's up, Alzarab? How you doing? Yo, what's up? What's up, Bart? How you doing? What's up, B-Tie? Is Evo smoking crack? We're just spectating prices. The thing that I feel like a lot of people have forgotten about the new Evo prices is that the way they've marketed it is that they've turned it on its head to say, oh, your ticket now includes the final day as well. So you can go to the final area, watch the finals there and everything like that, instead of making it a separate ticket. So what did the final ticket cost originally? Like $80 to $90. Wrap that into the normal Evo price tickets of like, what was it, 160, 100? I don't actually remember. And then what you got is like a $200 ticket at that point for a convention now. Mind you, I think it's the best spectator pass you can possibly get from a fighting game fan point, but it doesn't make the price not absurd either. I'm not gonna sit here and fucking lie to you and say like these prices aren't absurd, but I will say the value barely scrapes over. Barely scrapes over. If you can make the rest of the value actually valuable, because some people are coming from like the fucking East Coast, out of country and stuff, shit like that, and that shit ain't gonna work. That shit ain't gonna fly. Literally, that shit ain't gonna fly. On top of paying an extra $200 to be at the convention itself, it doesn't work. But if you like someone like you, for example, or me previously who was in Colorado, it's like cool. A flight over is like $100. That's not that big of a deal. It's an event for all of the Southwest and California, basically now. The hour-long Depths of Peril video. I feel that a different 10-minute video. Because we're already sitting at an hour and a half-ish on whatchamacallit, on Fallout. So I don't know if I can do an hour-long Depths of Peril video, unfortunately, today. But a 10-minute one, let's say yes. Let's say yes on that. It was on Second Impact. Oh, yeah. The Second Impact. Okay, out of all the things that have vibes that are really good, yeah, Second Impact, extremely good OST as well. It unfortunately gets overshadowed by Third Strike to a degree, but oh well. Grand Blue Turismo goes crazy. Someone needs to draw that. If only I had artist friends I could tap into their skill levels too. Damn. Yeah, location blows. Yeah, location blows compared to Mandalay Bay, but they did need more space. Like these are the worst kind of growing pains that they're having right now, where they're getting very huge. They're probably losing $1 billion on renting out the finals area in Mandalay Bay, and Mandalay Bay itself being hyper expensive in itself. There's no good answer. Let's put it this way. There's no fucking good answer. From the I work staff standpoint of multiple events, and I get a lot of the backstories of reasons and options that they make, but without like giving out any names or anything like that, it fucking sucks to host the event right now. It absolutely sucks. Because it ain't getting cheaper, and people ain't making money right now, especially with all the layoffs that are going on and everything like that. So it's like people have to start valuing, do they want to make it to an event or not? Yes, no. Okay, with how much value can they add to the event itself? What do people want out of the event itself as well? Do they just want to play? Do they actually want to have the convention aspect? I think there's value in both aspects, mind you, but God, it doesn't. It's not easy. I feel the worst for Evo, because at least for like Chicago tournaments like Combo Breaker and Frosty Faustings, it's like, okay, well, it's the outskirts of Chicago. Chicago is very easy to fly to. It's not the most expensive place in the world to stay, even though it's not exactly cheap, but everything's still kind of close-knit on the suburb side of things. So they can make that happen, but everything else, oofa doofa. It's really rough. And it does prevent scalping to a degree. Not that I don't think there were many scalpers in the first place for Evo tickets. I'd be very sad. Okay, with Evo. The Evo oil. Fuck extra virgin. Even though something gamers, very low hanging fruit joke here. I don't even want to fully make it and commit myself to it. But yeah, cooking with extra virgin olive oil is absolutely a treat. I just bought more the other day. Been watching videos of random guys challenging pro athletes, fighters, and getting destroyed. Wait, what? We're just finding videos of random guys challenging pro athletes / fighters and getting fucked up. Because that's very funny. To me, at least. It's just like I think it was like 13% of men believe that they can take a match off of Venus Williams. Or Serena Williams. Or both. I don't know. It might have been both, honestly. One of the Williams sisters. And it's just like, and they're like, well, they gotta get tired eventually. It's like, well, so do you, motherfucker. And they're like, well, if they're sleeping and I show up on the court and I hit the ball against them, then that counts as a point for me. And I'm like, doesn't count, motherfucker. That's not a regulation match. You cannot make that count. Yeah, $100 in a 45-minute flight. Exactly. California can fucking drive over there. And then, yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is almost here. There's so many good games out right now, and I unfortunately discovered more yesterday. I really want to play more Pato Box. Pato Box is insanely cool. That's a 10-minute one? Cool. Thank you for that. Let me copy that link real quick here. And I'll just pop it over to the right side over here. Yeah. Apologies that we can't do another hour-long one. I actually do have some stuff that I potentially might be doing tonight here. All right. let me restructure the video here real quickly. Just taking my time here. Oh, wrong thing. I clicked on the wrong thing. I mean, I guess I don't really need that on anymore. I can just listen to the music at this point. Why is this not moving? I have it unlocked. Yeah. I have it unlocked. Let me move it, bro. Okay, thank you. Because it's a little bit bigger size than the other video, so gotta make up for lost space. Turn that off as well here. Hell yeah. Including the Rhine. Fucking hero. Here's one as well. Awesome. Actually, Alzaref, can you add that to the exclamation point cool list? Just so I don't lose it. I need to get back to that list soon now that I'm settled back at home for all my fucking travel. But yeah. Yeah, it sucks. You can't go back to your room if you want to chill because it's way too fucking far away. Yeah, the 6-minute Uber, your hotel, if you select something close. And that's close. And mind you, the things that are close on that side of the strip is like, I mean, the west, not the west. No, it's the Westin. No, it's not the Westin. It's the West Las Vegas, whatever, on that side of the strip. And then I think the next closest thing outside of that is like fucking Circus. And then you have to take the monorail for like 20 minutes if you want to be at Mandalay Bay or anywhere else, honestly. Which, not the worst thing in the world, but it sucks not being close to venue or on venue all the time, quite honestly. So I kind of understand that. Joe's vs. Pros on Spike TV? I didn't watch Spike TV, so that's probably why I don't remember it. I don't remember a single thing from Spike TV. But I have never, ever heard of that show before. But that's good to know, now that I have a thing with that. Wings of V. That sounds familiar. Remember that is Strong Bad Man, but I have brain words that want to go away until I... Game is due for a reevaluation. Wings of V. That sounds familiar, and I don't know why. Let me Google it, actually. I lied. I'm just going to look at Wings of V. Video game. Okay, yeah, no, I'm looking at it now. I'm like, I have seen this game before. I thought people liked this game a lot. And let's just say it's due for reevaluation, as in it fucking sucks. In which case, I can't help you there. That goes against everything I know about the game. Alright, so this man's a comedian and a Twitch streamer. Previously, he ate an entire lemon, including the rind, because someone said he couldn't after he said he couldn't. Okay. In that same video, also ate a second lemon because he had a second one in his room. He bit into it as a bit and decided he had to finish that one as well. Some people are built different. Some people have a challenge in front of them and they're just able to fucking do stuff. I mean, that's kind of me, but without eating foods I don't want to eat instead. Sometimes I just get I get a game in front of me that's like, Guys, single player mode. And I'm just like, all right, I got to play Guys. It turns out I got to play Guys right now. Everyone back up. This dude's playing Guys. But his plan was to eat an entire watermelon on a stream, and when he was finished, he would show this dress rehearsal. That's fucked up. I like him already. Including the rind is a really fucked up part. That's really fucking funny. All right, let me change something real quick here. That's not the right thing. Let me do that over here. That didn't work. Why didn't that work? All right, I'm gonna have to reset something. That didn't work at all. We'll just have to reset it, unfortunately. All right, screen's gonna blow up for a second here. Don't mind me. Don't look at me. Don't judge me in my incapabilities to stream. All right, I need you to be on top for a second here. Ah, so you need to be on top for a second here. All right. All right. I try to put the titles for videos down so that everyone knows where / who to source if they want to watch more or anything like that. I try to be good about that. I'm effectively, to a degree, I acknowledge I'm effectively stealing content, but there we go. All right. There we go. We're good to go here. All right. Yo, what's up, Coco? How you doing? Howdy to you as well. And Eskimo, all the same. Love to see it. Hell yeah. It brought back the 13-year-old in me. Damn. I haven't felt things I hadn't felt in years. Alzaraf's in love. That's great. I'm glad Alzaraf's in love. Alzaraf deserves love. I mean, I'm just 100% excited for Remake 2, just in general. I liked Remake 1 a lot. Cool, I'm gonna play Remake 2. That's literally it. That is literally the entire technique. I'm not thinking that hard about it. All right, let me start this video of this guy eating a melon. I could probably talk over it too, I'm sure.
YouTube. This isn't a YouTube thing. You'll see. The date is the 11th of August, 2023.
Good job.
The time is 11:15 a.m. This is Tom Walker attempting to eat an entire watermelon in one sitting. Dress rehearsal for the Tom Walker Twitch stream.
Dress rehearsal. It's very quiet. Okay. Let me turn it up a bit. Might be because he's a quiet man. God, he just fucking cut a square into it. What the fuck's wrong with you? It's very quiet. It's not even just me. Like, I have everything maxed out. It's very, very quiet. Oh no, including the rind. Including the rind. He is eating all of it. I feel
trepidatious.
And he has good word choice, apparently.
Already my stomach feels a little bit interesting, I'd say is how I would describe it.
Motherfucker said interesting.
The rind is more difficult than eating the rest of the watermelon. It's really coming into focus why people don't eat the rind. But I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. I've returned with a spoon for the interior of the watermelon. And, sorry, Riley W. Baker just said, did you wash the rind?
Oh!
It's just occurred to me that that's something I should have done. No. I didn't wash the rind. Eat the rind. But I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. I've returned with a spoon for the interior of the watermelon and a cold brew coffee.
Just call off work, Als. I've called off work for worser games. Fucking Brawl. Smash Bros. Brawl. I called off work for that. Day one. Terrible idea.
Thank you, Tesla Gangster. 21 months, welcome back. You know the thing you do such a disgusting
Yeah. B-Tide is terrible about waiting for games. Fucking cannot do it.
I just heard my tummy make the first grumble.
Work's already taken off. Yeah, exactly.
How much I've gone through.
What's in the $400 collector's edition, by the way, B-Tide?
I hope the mic didn't pick any of that up. I would like to get to 50% of the rind before I make a judgment call.
50% of the rind, motherfucker.
I think it's possible still.
Ooh, homemade
And it is
nachos? Tell me
setting
more,
in that I'm
Eskimo.
doing this to no one. And I'm wondering if it will feel better when
Don't
I
worry,
do
Coco. It's only going to get worse from
if I
here.
do it.
Hope your OCD doesn't get
Two
destroyed. It's only 10 minutes.
Oh,
Maybe I'll survive. You're strong.
back we go.
Coco, you're strong as fuck.
I'm chopping off a lot of the watermelon itself so I can just eat the rind, so that I can save the watermelon as a treat or a sprint to the finish.
Actually, I
depending
agree
on
with
when I
that.
need a break from the rind.
I agree with that. That's a
I feel
good
like my
technique. I can
Teeth
agree
will
with
need a
that.
break from it, and soon I'll get to the point where I can just kind of mush the watermelon with my tongue into the roof of my mouth, and that'll do most of the. Well, not chewing, but destruction.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't know what was up with me there. I don't know what I was talking.
He's having a
about.
marshmallows.
Also, I just saw
Eskimo,
Chef
you
Melissa
shut
say
the hell
weird
up.
moment to join this
Go to jail.
stream. So let me say, okay, documenting my failed attempt to eat a whole watermelon.
Failed attempt.
Just changing the title so people don't think. Teeth will need a break from it, and soon I'll get to the point where including the rind.
Oh, right. Yeah. The Rugrats episode, that still lives rent-free in my head, honestly. That entire episode lives very, very close to my head.
Can just kind of mush the
I don't know
watermelon
why
with my
that
tongue
one
into the
does.
roof
I
of
wasn't
my
like
mouth, and
afraid of
that'll do
it
most
or
of
anything
the-
like that, of eating a seed of a watermelon.
Well,
but
not chewing, but
it just
destruction.
lives in my head.
I'm having a rough time. Chews are coming further apart and taking longer, so I'm gonna put. It's not the first documented case of watermelon madness.
Look, Chucky burped it up. It was fine.
All right.
I'm sure you've burped up a bunch of seeds before.
Look, thing with the 25 months.
No one has ever
That is early
burped
signs
up a
of melon
seed
madness.
No, it's not.
as conveniently as Chucky has ever done in that episode. That
my
part
green
sticks with me the
screen,
fucking
so
most. I hate
in
that
post,
ending, but I understand why I had to do that
can-
ending.
Oh, yeah, here. Time. Chews are coming further apart and taking longer, so I'm gonna put up my green screen so in post I can put myself somewhere nice.
Can't wait for this part of my VOD to be muted. This is gonna be great.
This is 56 minutes into the watermelon.
He's not even halfway. Oh no!
That's the progress.
Why is this
Looking at this and
happening now?
realizing I'm maybe a quarter done after 56 minutes is really bad. That's not good at all.
Yeah. By the time we see this video, it was already
Let's
too
see
late to
how
help
far
him. There's nothing we could do besides watch and pray. The bro with the mullet and the Patagonia shirt, sweating his ass off, trying to put himself into outer space because he's out of space in his stomach right now. Yeah, his mullet is fighting against him. Everything is fighting against this dude right now. Fight night.
Fight night.
I think I might have figured out the issue of
16
Fight Night. I forgot to try it this morning, but I think I might have figured out the issue,
1
by the way.
hour,
So there might be good
2
news in the
minutes
future.
in, check.
But also, thank you for
I
the
think
100
that's
Fight
comfortably
Nights,
over a
Fruit Salad
quarter.
Kung Fu. How you
I don't think
doing?
it's happening.
This dude's fighting a knight. The knight's a
No,
fucking
dude.
watermelon, but he's fighting him.
I forgot I did that.
I forgot I did that. That's really good. What's up, Fruit Salad? How you doing? Everything's rebelling against this dude.
Maybe I need more coffee.
More liquids? Are you certain, my friend? Caffeine, the thing that makes you actually feel less hungry from a mental standpoint, is not going to help. He should try Kung Fu. This dude needs to move around or something. Or stop, I guess, is probably the #1 answer. If we were on Family Feud. It's for energy. He's gaining the energy to consume more calories. I don't think by the end, God. I feel like he's gonna reach I made a mistake point way earlier before he uses the end of it. I know what you're trying to say. But it didn't like the fact that he put ass Asians together. Yeah, stretching your stomach is actually a legitimate skill set, honestly. People think, oh, you're a big guy, that means you can eat a lot. Yeah, but if you don't stack your food properly and you stack it in very bad ways, you will lose the eating contest. This is literally a trained thing you have to do now.
Hey, Demi. Do you want to see how far I am with the watermelon? Yeah, come look. I think I'm close to throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
It's so much.
Sorry, babe. You know I believe in you, but I told you you couldn't do it.
No, you were right.
Why is she so nicely dressed as well?
Do you think
that is a
that's
really cute dress. Holy
That's
shit.
a lot, babe, yeah.
You tried your best. I still love you, even though you can't eat an entire watermelon. Why did you wait for 10 minutes? He just sat there for 10, disassociating from existence. Look, if he cuts off his ear, he has more room in his body to eat more watermelon. She's very supportive.
So that's...
I love her already, whoever she is. Also, seeing this shit in the corner here, stream doesn't end until I flip 10 heads in a row, is just the kind of batshit insane stuff that I want to do for my own stream. Like, I know exactly what I'm going to do whenever I end up rolling Mahjong Soul for a bad game December. And it's like, the stream doesn't end until I get 3 first places. And I'm going to be streaming for like 6 fucking hours. It's going to be terrible. It's going to seem innocuous from the get-go. And then I'm going to fucking actually do it. And it's going to be a absolute nightmare. I'm going to feel so stupid. 105 minutes. Yeah. Van Gogh could turn into an art form. Would you all support me? Would you all support me and give me a little smooch on the forehead if I fail to eat an entire watermelon on stream? I just need it for my mental fortitude. If you could. If you could, please. Oh gosh. I'm probably gonna watch more of his videos. This is kind of inane bullshit that I really like seeing people suffer through, because it's like I would do the exact same thing. Sometimes there's a challenge in front of you and you just gotta fucking do it. That's the kind of person I am sometimes. He also gave him the rule that if he flipped 10 tails, the amount of heads required would go up to 11. You can't see me, obviously, because I'm not on camera today. But I'm in absolute stunned awe right now. Elate the silence for yourself. You've seen me emote as a flesh tuber enough times. You know what I'm about. Yeah, 11 tails, but like it would go up to like once he hits 11 tails, then he would move it up to 12 and so on and so forth. Pat on the shoulder and say, "Hey, can I have a piece?" Absolutely not, Eskimo. That's not support. That's stealing my thunder. How dare you steal the thunder from the most electrifying man in esports entertainment? Thank you, Fruit Salad Kung Fu. Yeah. We got the dab on. You can tell because my mouth is further away from the mic. That's about the best way I can do it. I didn't even give you a head pass to go along because thank you, Alzara. See, I can always trust you to be like the absolute homie every single time. Every time I see Alzaraf at any event, he's like the ultimate homie. He's just like there to absolutely fucking chill and like deal with my bullshit as I end up talking to like 400 people by trying to relax and chill. Next time, Alzaraf, we just gotta like fucking like, it's gonna sound bad in context, but you'll understand what I mean when I say it out loud. That the next time we're grabbing drinks together, we just need to go to like one of our fucking hotel rooms and just chill up there, because I don't get to talk to you by standing in the goddamn hallway. just we're gonna scoop up Josh and we're just gonna fucking like go up to one of our rooms and like just chill and drink for a bit. Because just standing in the hallway, I'm always happy to see people. Don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely always happy to see people. But that's also the problem. I'm always happy to see people. And so I can't do jack shit with any person that's in the conversation at the time. And yet you stick it out. You're an absolute homie. Yeah, exactly. We never get to sit down and chat. And it's just hard to. Because you're playing a lot of games. I'm knowing too many people whenever I'm actually free to do stuff. Never kind of shows. Well, that's a nobody EXE problem, though. Let's be real here. That's a nobody EXE problem. That's not you. That's nobody EXE who comes to the tournament, gets like 2 commentary blocks, and he's like, well, I'm going to roll this money into my drinks for the weekend now. Goodbye. Oh, gosh. Robin's driving us home. Well, hello, Robin. Please drive safe. Ignore the person who's eating an entire watermelon on stream. That is not real. We're going to watch more thorough history of Fallout, which is a 9-hour video, and we're only about 2 hours in. But he did accomplish it in one stream, and since the VODs are available, it's hard to watch without knowing how long it took him. So I say he freed himself after 8 hours. I mean, one sitting, it can be as ever long it can be, I guess. Oh, God. You get to sleep, wake up in the morning, go live for another shift at the coin. Oh, sorry. Not the watermelon, the coin. Okay, gotcha. Oh, God. All right. So a thorough look at Fallout. Like I said, 9 fucking hour video where we just passed up on Fallout 2. We just finished Fallout 2. So we're going to move into Fallout Tactics. Van Buren, I don't know what the hell that is besides like Armin Van Buren. And then Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, which was mentioned in the Fallout 2 aspect. And then we're going to do Fallout 3, which is like broken up into like 4 different parts here. So it's going to be about 2.5 hours. I'm going to actually gauge whenever I get to Fallout 3 and see what time it is specifically, because I still have stuff I need to do tonight. So I might just see where we're at that point. But I think we can probably still go through it for the entire stream, or the entire segment I at least planned out here. But Fallout 3 is definitely the first Fallout I've really ever heard of. Like, everyone was talking about Fallout 3 this, Fallout 3 that. I'm like, I did not know Fallout even existed in the first place. But now, apparently, Fallout 3 is the new hot shit. And I ended up never playing it. That's the end of the technique. Let's go. That's your first Fallout. I think that was probably a lot of people's first Fallout, actually. Because that was the first one that landed on a console, right? Because I think the first 2 were PC.
Thirdly, just 2 approaches. The 2 contrasting styles of Obsidian and Bethesda simply create such a large gulf between them that an entire middle era of Fallout games often falls
that's
through
the
the
big
crack
change
between
for
them
Fallout,
and
where it's like,
disappears
cool,
completely.
it became widely
The first
available.
2 games are often packaged as a collection of classic Fallouts, along with a third, much less frequently discussed title, 2001's Fallout Tactics. Developed by Australian studio Microforte, Fallout Tactics is the first spin-off in the franchise, taking the game universe pioneered by the original 2 games and translating it into a structure of pure combat and action. Fallout Tactics was, at the time of its release, heresy. Fallout 1 and 2 were games where words were the most important
God damn it.
thing.
Never
The
mind.
descriptions, the dialogue, the suggestion of a broader world. Fallout Tactics has a lot more words than a similar sort of action strategy game might. It maintains some dialogue through lengthy mission setups with even lengthier debriefings. The words just aren't very good, nor are they the focus of Fallout Tactics. Instead, Fallout Tactics has massive mission maps with sometimes complicated, often very fiddly goals to solve. It can take over an hour to solve a single map in the game, and there are more than 20 maps. However, when it came down to the wire, Fallout Tactics received an infamously minimal amount of actual playtesting. It was submitted on a Saturday night, and by Wednesday it was checked off as good enough for retail sale. Tactics has 3 modes to manage
I guess that's how they took
combat.
it. They didn't even take it
Individual
that seriously.
turn-based, following the established Fallout rules with sequence and such. Squad turn-based, where each team moves as one. And real-time combat with regenerating action points. Only real-time combat was tested. And even then, it was far too late in the process to meaningfully address broad balance issues. The result is an extremely peculiar artifact, an
You love that they
exceptionally
didn't test the
large,
game that
ambitious
much?
game with a
Or
notoriously
something else
unfair and
specifically?
unbalanced campaign, both too faithful to the mechanics of Fallout to smoothly function as an action strategy title, and not faithful enough to the tone and complexities of Fallout setting feel like an adequate sequel to the RPGs. Fallout Tactics pleases no one, which is a rough position to be in. In
We're
replaying
done
Fallout
shipping.
Tactics and in playing all the way to the end
I respect
for the first
that.
time since I was a teenager, I was
Especially knowing
surprised
what
to find that this is
AAA
really only half of
turnaround
the
times look like
conversation.
nowadays.
Fallout Tactics is, in some ways, larger and more complex from a development standpoint than Fallout 1 and 2 were. Tactics is an absolutely
have all of
massive
them?
40-hour time investment.
Are we including,
it's
like,
divided
the
by thematic acts,
spin-off games,
which
or, like,
rotate
all
the
just
theaters of
the
war and the villains involved every 3 or 4
main
missions,
series
escalating
games?
the scale and intensity of combat. The storytelling, while sloppy, all does point in a single direction and mostly flows that way. Without the Fallout pedigree setting expectations about what kind of game Tactics is supposed to be, without the Fallout character advancement system creating confusion and inefficiencies at every step of the strategy process, the game could be a much more impressive standalone title. It can be argued that Fallout Tactics belongs
games?
more in
Okay.
the history of the Wasteland franchise than the Fallout one. Ryan Fargo's Wasteland 2 and 3 are absolutely massive, sprawling games structured around small squad combat and isometric adventuring, just the same as Tactics. Structurally, Fallout Tactics and Wasteland 2 or 3 are fundamentally not that different. Fallout Tactics just lacks the professional polish and the professional artistic direction that InXile provided its later games.
Oh, fair
Developed
enough.
under extreme pressure and with a lack
So they
of
have the
financial
experience
support,
of a Tactics
Fallout
game.
Tactics was originally given only 12 months of development time,
Whoa.
later extended to 16 months. The fact that the game works at all with the amount of visible feature creep it has and the frankly excessive length of the campaign is amazing. The fact that it has, despite its flaws,
Yeah, 12
its
months
own
for even
unique
back
intangible
then
identity
is-
among the Fallout games
Oof.
is even more amazing. Fallout Tactics is a mutant among its peers. This is true.
Am I quite
but
screwed
like
into
the
the
previous
video?
games
All
have
right, I
pointed
can
out,
change
you
that.
gotta be pretty
He's very
strong
quiet to
to
me,
survive
so I can
being
do
made
that.
into a
Thank you,
mutant
Dubs.
in the first
Appreciate that.
place.
Good evening to you.
I kind of glossed
How you doing,
over the
handsome?
game the first time I did a Fallout video, but this time around I found myself fascinated by the game's peculiarities and its ambition. There are moments when a player can catch sight of the game that Fallout Tactics
The
was
super
supposed to
mutant
be. You just have to look under the tumorous, bloated outside into the beady whites of its eyes to see it. Bethesda has stated that nothing in Fallout Tactics is really canon anymore, if it ever was, although some parts of the basic setup
I will
are still
say,
alluded to in a couple of lines of dialogue here
Looking
and there in Fallout
at
4.
the video
The idea
of
is that following the events
Fallout,
of Fallout 1, the old super mutant army moved east. The Brotherhood of
Fallout
Steel,
Tactics,
riding
it
high
looks the
from
same as
victory,
Fallout?
expands and creates a fleet
So I'm
of
kinda saying,
Zeppelins
like,
with which to pursue the mutants and destroy
okay.
them once and for all. A storm over Illinois destroys most of the fleet and leaves the rest grounded halfway across the country with hardly any
Yo,
supplies,
what's up, Shark? How you
survivors, or
doing?
direction.
I am also glad
Although
I'm
the game
feeling
is often
better.
criticized by
Got to
Fallout
knock out a
purists for how it
7-hour stream
portrays the
yesterday.
Brotherhood of Steel,
Felt
it
amazing.
certainly
I
can
feel
be very
really good
stupid that
today.
way.
Feel
I count
accomplished.
that actually pretty low on the game's list of failures. The idea
But
that
how
the
you doing,
Brotherhood,
Shark? What's going
staring in
on?
the face of
Good to
failure,
see you as
would
well.
abandon most of their values to continue to pursue their mission of vengeance against the mutants is kind of interesting. Before the game even begins, this new Brotherhood is portrayed in an extremely negative light. With only a few survivors from the actual Brotherhood able to continue, the process of rebuilding the organization from the ground up means recruiting. And the Brotherhood does this through forced conscription of locals and tribals, where their training program kills a minimum of 4 in 10. The power-armored officers of the Brotherhood exploit the conscripts in such a callous, bloodthirsty way that a major mechanical feature is that you are never provided with any equipment of your own. It must always be bartered for with what you can scavenge from the maps. There is one penalty for failure in the new Brotherhood, and that's execution. The game eventually pivots towards humanizing the Brotherhood and celebrating your advancement within it, but that's part of what makes the writing inconsistent and poor. Making the Brotherhood explicit villains from the get-go and putting your character in the unhappy position of being the intermediary between the invaders and the local cultures is inherently complex, inherently dramatic. It's essentially the setup on which the excellent computer RPG Tyranny is based. Fallout Tactics is just very distractible. For the
Yeah, I was
first
gonna
two
say,
acts of
Brotherhood is,
5,
like, so
this
talked
essential
about
tension between
in
being
Fallout
hated
2.
by everyone you encounter and everyone being very justified in feeling that way about you works very well. Fighting increasingly powerful bands of raiders is especially fun because, despite the pretense of protecting the towns from which the Brotherhood draws recruits and resources, the main problem the raiders have with you is competition. You're breaking their monopoly on parasitic militarism. From the beginning, though, what you fundamentally lack from a player's standpoint is agency or choice. You cannot struggle within your position. You can only conform to it, and as you conform to it,
so that
the game
completely feels
forgets
like it
that
misses
was
the points of,
supposed
like,
to
the
be a
first two
complicated or
games.
distasteful role to begin with. You might begin as a conscript against your will, but by the end, every character's attitude changes to, "That's officer fascist to you, wasteland scum." In truth, you have no character. You have no player dialogue. There are no conversation trees, only NPC-delivered paragraphs in one-off lines. This is partly so that any squad member can be used for non-combat interactions. If you have an NPC better at barter or gambling than your main character, you can use them instead.
Makes sense.
Speech has been removed as a skill, replaced with piloting, a very weird skill that governs how well the vehicles in the game maneuver. So on the one hand, yay, the game is more interactive on the surface level than Fallout 1 or 2 was. Fully moving implemented vehicles, larger maps, more weapons, dozens of new animations.
Sorry, I got to pause for a second here because I have a question as someone who doesn't know a lot about Fallout stuff, but I was watching another friend stream a newer Fallout game, New Vegas, I believe. So he's saying that you can use companions to do other tasks for you. Can you not do that in the more current games then? Is that not a current game thing? Because I know you can have companions. I know they do stuff. I just don't know what the scope of doing stuff is at this point or at the current point. So I'm just curious about that. So I didn't want to pause for a second.
Is speech.
To ask that question.
Or, in other words, the only thing missing is the entire backbone of storytelling and interaction that made Fallout 1 and 2 immersive in the first place. Fallout Tactics trades immersion for interactivity, even when that interactivity is half-finished and of dubious utility. You can see all this coming together in the very first mission, Ramenwood. From the start, the whole mission name is a dick joke, and it's just gonna go lower from there. The setup, a tribal village forced to choose between oppression from the Raiders and oppression from the Brotherhood, is interesting enough. But the only thing you have control over is the outcome of certain hostage situations and whether an alarm goes on or off. These sorts of things are reflected in
about
your
the same?
after-action
Okay,
report, which
okay,
provides
gotcha.
each mission its own epilogue slide of sorts. Save everyone, you get more recruits. Let the villagers die, the Brotherhood has less to plunder. Hostage situations are a common mission objective throughout Fallout Tactics, and they are never smooth. They are highly dependent on rolls of the dice, on
Okay, so
skills
pack
of
mules
your
and
team,
extra
perception
DPS.
scores
Okay,
of
so
the
they're there
hostage
to
takers.
help,
The
but
first
you're
time is forgiving,
still
but
driving
later on,
the
it
ship,
gets
basically.
wildly out of hand. This is the only way that the game understands
story?
to allow
Okay.
player agency,
Which also
a
makes
test
sense
of
in that
precise
regard.
or sloppy gameplay to determine if you are taking combat scenarios seriously or not. In this way, an attempt at compassionate gameplay and story outcomes only ends up making you a more effective soldier for the Brotherhood. There is no such thing as player characterization or opinion, only operational effectiveness in the field. The game kind of circles back around to this at the very end, and we will too, when you're allowed to pick from a very small number of endings in the final 5 minutes. That's several dozen hours of
hate
gameplay
that.
away. In these first 2 acts, the narrative framing of the game's protagonists as anti-heroes at best and villains at worst becomes less interesting and more frustrating as the game continues to creep it along at a very slow pace without any kind of narrative evolution or friction. The Brotherhood does not soften, not really, although the game makes vague gestures in that direction from time to time. The Brotherhood remains mostly static. It's the enemies that have a narrative arc. Out of everything that's immediately missing from the game compared to its predecessors, it's the lack of player agency that hits the hardest and makes the first part of the game such a slog.
That kind
I
of
remember
sucks.
pushing
Watching
through
everyone
mission
else
after
have like
mission, hoping
character
it would
arcs
improve,
and you just
always
sort of
tapping out after around 20
you're not
hours,
affected
when the
by
game just
anything.
stayed mostly the
It reminds
same
me of
in
Final
terms
Fantasy
player
VIII and Squall.
self-definition. Of course, it's not just being unable to express yourself within the game world that's frustrating. It's that the game thinks that the best way to contrast the amoral, grimdark framing is to balance it on the other side with fart and sex jokes so dated and worthless that they wouldn't pass muster for a straight-to-DVD American Pie sequel. Fallout Tactics takes the worst tendencies of Fallout 2 to indulge in a very crass teenage approach to grit, and then dials those impulses up to 11. You could, I guess, make a vague argument that you can tie this tonality to some post-apocalyptic source material, but then you'd have to be willing to stick
What's
up
up,
for the
Skeleton?
source
How you
material.
doing?
1970s genre
I said Final
sex
Fantasy
booths
VIII,
are
and it was
often
not in a
worse than
positive
90s
light.
sex comedies because they're often hostile
But how you
to the
doing?
idea
I'm
of
glad it
consent.
brought you in
As the president of
regardless, because I'm
1960s
always
Jane
happy to
Fonda
see
vehicle
you.
Barbarella looks on the surface.
doing all right,
A ton
fam?
of the punchlines are based around sexual assault. The 1975 post-apocalyptic tale A Boy and His Dog takes it to the level of having a rapist as a main character whose telepathic dog goes out and tracks down women for him to assault.
Wow.
It's kind of unwatchable in what it thinks is funny. There are
Pause about Final Fantasy.
compromises
I
where
can
these
be paused about Final
post-nuclear
Fantasy
sleuths
VIII.
are
A
sometimes
lot of it
too
has to do with the
willfully
OST,
stupid to really
though.
qualify as uncomfortable. Like the 1988 cult classic Rowdy Roddy Piper action comedy Hell Comes to Frogtown, whose trailer is worth watching for a moment because it captures
Case in point,
the
yeah.
entire absurd
The OST is
attitude better
absolutely
within 40
fantastic,
seconds
though.
than I could manage in 400.
Reflect for a moment on the art of cinema. Think of a motion picture like The Last Emperor.
Man of Machine Gun is a banger. I mean, literally, damn near literally every song in Final Fantasy VIII is extremely good, which is insane quality throughout an entire 80-plus hour RPG. That nearly every song that gets played is one you're looking forward to.
Yes, better blow it out your exhaust pipe, cinema lover, because here comes fun with hair on it.
Oh, that's disgusting.
You're gonna see the biggest piece of shattering entertainment that ever molested your sensibilities.
That sounds great.
Want a plot? Here it is. It's the end of the 20th century, and mankind has blown its wad. The fate of humanity rests in the groin of one man.
Their leader, Commander Toady, has kidnapped some pilgrims who wandered into their territory. We're gonna get him out.
That fucking car, god damn it.
Yes, if you want a brilliant film, you can go right to Hell Comes to Frogtown. A story of mutant sex. And
that lean
like
into like the
you
pun
and
was
me.
actually strong.
It's hot.
I'm not gonna lie.
It's wet.
And it's bad.
It's Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Musical in the game. Yeah, Laguna Squad is cool.
It's hot,
Gunblades
it's
are
wet,
fucking edgy and
it's
cool as
bad.
hell. I hope
It's
it comes
such an
back.
excellent shorthand for this
would-
entire
we need
microgenre
more
of dialogue.
Gunblades in our video
And if
games,
that's
honestly.
the kind of media the game wanted to be, it would have done well to
It was
simply
awesome
lead with
sometimes.
that, to be
I've
a
never
big,
touched a
corny
Fallout
cheese
before.
fest with no
So
interest in
this
pleasing
whole
anyone outside
video
of its core
that I'm
audience.
slowly
Passing
creeping
glance
through
at today's Steam
is
storefront will tell you that there
giving
is
me
a
more
market for
insight that I'll ever
When
probably
you
get for
begin
myself,
with,
honestly.
Blow it out your tailpipe, cinema lovers. This is fair to both the media making that statement
Oh, is
and
that just
to
are
cinema
doing
lovers,
well?
because the
They
two
probably
were never
are,
really
because
meant to
they don't have to do
intersect in the first
anything
place.
again
When you
with
begin with the name Fallout,
commercial.
after having established that the games do, at minimum, consider themselves to be art and present an artistically cohesive world, it becomes more of a problem to subsequently take all those expectations and hopes and only then blow them out your tailpipe.
No.
That's liable to get folks pretty mad, which is precisely what happened with Fallout Tactics.
But this is also my first
So
Noah
is
video
there
I've seen
a
too.
precedent
Noah
for the tone of Fallout Tactics
Gervais
in
video I've seen as
post-apocalyptic
well,
media?
and
Absolutely. Is it
it's
a
absolutely
pedigree that
knocking it out of the
was
park. Obviously, I've gone
intentional?
back 3
Now that I
times
just
so
don't know.
far.
It's odd to think that this game is this tone deaf accidentally. From trying to be serious by rescuing a sexual assault survivor, to trying to make a joke that robots killed off an old sex workers only paying clients, to joking about even the possibility of men being raped by making fun of a tribal for getting numerous STDs from his captor, the game is absolutely convinced that adult content means talking about sex and sexuality.
So it's
in
like a
way
BMXX
absolutely
type of thing where it's
guaranteed to
like
say the most
adult
tired
content
and
means the
meaningless
game's
things about it.
adult.
This is often coupled with a kind of annoying casual racism with the tribal voices. There's absolutely no reason to make the tribals sound that way. It was bad enough with Sulik in Fallout 2, but the other Arroyo tribals weren't nearly so rough. The Elder was cryptic, but in a non-specific wise crone kind of way. And Hakunin used elliptical ways of speaking.
Don't
but
worry,
spoke
it
with
won't
a
be like the
vaguely
dude
European
from
accent
Frank Bruno's
besides, which was
boxing
kind of fun.
yesterday.
The idea of tribes makes sense because that's such a
What was
basic
it?
unit of
Tribal
group
Trouble
organization and
from
governance,
Frank
one of the
Bruno's
truly
boxing.
oldest that
Came
there
out with
is.
the bone in the
However,
fucking
thing that would
nose. Like,
actually
no,
make
brother,
tribes unique to a
no.
post-apocalyptic setting is
There's
cultural
no fucking
decay.
way.
To use old Hollywood-style caricatures of Native American accents is not only a tired, racist old trope, it just flatly refuses to interact with what's fictionally interesting about post-apocalyptic tribal cultures.
So he's one of
What
my
makes
favorite.
the
Is it?
Arroyo tribals
Ooh.
unique is how
And
they
Jacob
are descended
Geller.
from the people of Vault 13.
I don't think I am,
The
actually.
Cultural decay and mythological twists
me
that
type
happen
it on
over
my side
generations
screen
as
here.
things that were memories for the elders
Well,
become
tired
just
but well.
stories
Seems
for
to
those in
be
their youths.
the
One of the
unfortunate
best
classic.
post-apocalyptic novels
But,
is George R. Stewart's Earth
as long as you're
Abides,
well,
whose
so that's
short
like the
final
most I can
act
ask
shows
for,
the
you know?
protagonist, who lived through the collapse, increasingly venerated,
All
and
right.
increasingly
I subscribe to
isolated
Jacob on
as
the
he
side as
becomes,
well.
by
Thank
virtue of
you.
the passing of time, the last American.
Since I have the opportunity to do
In the
that.
first chapter of that last section, he is no longer very lucid, drifting in and out of consciousness. He has a moment of clarity and finds the familiar face of his dead son. But it's not. It's his grandson, now a man. He asks to see one of the arrows that his grandson carries. Quote, Ish looked at the arrow and felt the weight of it. This was no child's plaything. The shaft was nearly a yard long, split cleanly from a billet of flawless, straight-grained wood. Then he observed the arrowhead, again more by feel than by sight. It had the bumpy yet slick feel which told him it was hammered metal. What is that made of, he asks. It is made from those little round things. They have faces on them. The old men have a name for them, but I do not remember exactly. It's something like corns? End of quote. His grandson explains to him that they use quarters for large game and pennies for small game. Isherwood always prided himself on rationality, so he hates this. Quote, No, he said so sharply that the young man started. No, that's not right. The white arrowheads and the red, one is just as well as... Then, slowly, his voice trailed off. No, he thought, this was just not the way it was destined to be. End quote. His world had ended, and he ended.
Sorry, I had these messages on my side here.
Ish's life, after the fall, was a bid for control that was always illusory and impossible. At the bitter end, he accepts it. Quote, he was the last of the old. They were the first of the new. But whether the new would follow the course that the old had followed, that he did not know. And now at last he was almost certain that he did not even desire that the pattern should be repeated. He suddenly thought of all that had gone to build a civilization, of slavery and conquest and war and oppression. But now he looked beyond the young men, the bridge itself. Now that he would soon be dead, he felt himself more a companion of the bridge than of the men. It too had been part of civilization. End quote. The role of tribal cultures in post-apocalyptic media is an opportunity to write something truly novel. But not Fallout Tactics. Here they unironically have this guy greeting you by saying, "Me, Chief Chevron, Chief Watutu," and then makes a huge joke over the fact that Watutu thinks that fusion batteries are actual living bats, and he pronounces things the wrong way anyway. The mission itself has you going into an underground bunker
just even
to
fucking
fusion
try.
batteries, but the switch to allow access to the restricted area also turns on the surface turrets. You can complicate the mission for yourself.
But I mean, I guess it's easy to
and leave
make
a switch
jokes about
operator
other
behind
people
if
when
you
it's
wanna
not
save the
you who's
tribes
being
people
made fun
from being
of, and that
murdered
was
by
a lot of
legions.
theme of
So
like the 90s
technically,
and
you
early
don't have to
2000s.
kill
So
everybody.
that makes a lot of
That's
sense.
something. It's just that literally everything else about the mission's setup and dialogue is a weird fantasy of the smart, tough colonizers showing up to take care of what the primitives are too stupid to do for themselves. It is an ancient series of tropes, none of them good. Microforte is an Australian company and not an American one, but Australia isn't any better in terms of attitudes towards native populations.
Oh, no.
Many of the same casual racisms persist over there
If
as
not-
in
if
America,
not, any
and they
worse.
persist also right here within Fallout Tactics. Even if you're an asshole and are for some reason inclined to argue that a game being meanly, grossly sexist and racist every other level or so isn't enough of a reason to criticize it on the merits, surely it's obvious that this writing represents the most lazy, sloppy approach a person could possibly take with a piece of post-apocalyptic media. Fallout 1 and 2 are works of actual satire. They have different styles, but both games have a sense of humor that's primarily oriented around irony. The sense of humor in Fallout Tactics is oriented, instead, around saying the dumbest, grossest things at any given time, a la Grand Theft Auto's landscape of
Actually,
billboards
that's a
and
great
radio
question.
ads that are just a relentless
When
progression
did
of fart
Fallout
jokes and dick
Tactics
jokes.
come out?
This matters because
Because this is
as
definitely
much as it
of
looks
the
like
era. It
Fallout,
sounds like
as much as I
disgustingly of
wanted
the
to
era.
resemble
20
Fallout,
2001.
Tactics never truly does. It doesn't try hard
I'm
enough with the
surprised, I
things that
guess.
matter. There was no
Yeah,
time. All the
2001.
development hours went towards the bizarre, ambitious, mostly unfinished gameplay systems, which strikes me as an interesting window into
I mean, I
what
guess when you have 12
development
months to write
priorities can look like
something,
when you become
you can't
overwhelmed
really put your
with
heart
feature
into
creep.
it, in all fairness.
So much time was spent making sure that piloting was implemented into the game that no one stopped to consider the ramifications.
Yeah,
of
that is
releasing a
Newgrounds.
product
I guess
with a
that's fair. That is
0%
very
skill and
Newgrounds
speech.
era.
I mean, to
12
this
months,
day, Fallout
Newgrounds
Tactics is the
era,
only Fallout game where you can
Internet
drive
Wild
cars,
West
which
shit.
only serves to highlight how little people care about back-of-the-box features
You're
like that
absolutely
in
right,
comparison
Dubs.
to elements like presentation and storytelling. That's a selling point for approximately nobody. Like, oh yeah, I was going to start Fallout 4 because it's cheap on Steam and looks pretty, but I changed my mind when I saw that they put a Humvee in Tactics. It's unfair and unconstructive to call anyone's creative output a true waste of time, but considering the extremely short window for development that Tactics had, the failure
The
to
biggest
judiciously
breeding ground
prioritize and
for
the confusion about
the
what to
utmost
prioritize in
creative
making Fallout
people
spin-off
out there
is
to this
really
day,
striking.
and
In
also the
2001,
least
developer
amount of
Tony
creativity
Oakton
ever
published
seen
a postmortem on
in any sort of
GameDeveloper.com,
effort.
then called Gamasutro, an industry publication. Oakton is quite
Newgrounds
honest
is
about the
just-
feature creep situation, and the
God.
article is fascinating. And
It's
putting
it's the
together a
best
picture of what the game was
culmination
meant
and
to be
show of a
versus what the
specific
game
era
turned
of
out to be.
time.
This is a big quote.
I'm not gonna
but
say it's
it really
only
explains the entire
based around
development
there,
process.
it's cultivated there, or
Oakton
anything like
recalls,
that, but
quote,
it's like the best way of like,
when I joined the
if you
project,
needed
I
an
had the distinct
overarching
impression that
view
the
of
game
what
going to be a
internet was like
turn-based
at the
RPG.
time,
As the game
Newgrounds
progressed,
is
it
like
became
the
clear that
place
this
to
was not
go.
the case, and we started to
The-
move
yeah, the
farther
meat
into
and fuckers
world
are
of
still
tactical
being
combat and
made?
ultimately to real-time gameplay. The situation finally became intolerable.
But yeah,
in
the
August
highest peaks
2000
and the
when we
most
attempted to produce our first
abysmal
single-player
lows.
demo. The game absolutely
And
stunk.
they
It was
allowed,
obvious to
I
all who
think,
played
just
the game
all of it. I don't
that
think there was
was
anything
just
that they
not working.
basically
At this
did not
point,
allow
Ryan
on there for like the
Christian phoned
longest
my
time.
CEO and told him that the game did not play. We realized that the
Well,
RPG
maybe
element
the
had
meat
to
and
be
fuck games
peripheral to the game.
art
We
has
concentrated
gotten
instead
better.
on setting up carefully designed tactical situations for
At
the player to
minimum.
solve. We started with
Trying
just
to
the
find
opening section from the second demo
trying to
mission,
find the bright
and worked
sides
on that
here.
until it was fun to play.
But you know what?
We gradually expanded this to
They
the whole
found
level.
their niche. They're
The big
still
problem
going
was,
for it.
By that time,
Whatever.
we'd already
You
started
found what
building
makes you
game
happy.
levels based on assumptions
I
about
could
how the
also
game would
never
be played,
tell you
so
either.
most of this work was wasted. Combining this with the fact that the text had to be ready for localization and recording of voiceovers meant that we were unable to make all of the changes that we wanted. Eventually, we had to completely rewrite a large percentage of the missions with a substantial cost in terms of time. The unrealistic time limit problem was further exacerbated by the size of the game we created. Originally, 20 single-player levels and 10 multiplayer levels seemed a reasonable size for the final game. However, when we started to get flack from the Fallout fans about the game not being true to the original, we decided to link the missions together with a world map rather than a linear mission structure. This, in turn, led to the inclusion of random encounters and unique encounters to add extra interest while traveling between the core missions. We produced special levels.
Oh,
for
wheel the
bunkers
shit
where you
owls,
could
and that's
re-equip and change
okay.
your squad.
You know what? That's
This
okay.
works very well in the game.
We have
but
the
it
knowledge to
increased
pass
our
down to
workload
the next generation,
substantially.
and I am
We also
completely happy
hopelessly
with that.
overestimated how big our maps needed to be. We ended up with some truly huge playing areas and the associated problems of having to populate them with interesting encounters. We should have been far more brutal in what we were going to drop from the original Fallout. We inherited a lot of nifty ideas.
Yeah,
but
on the
many
bright
of them
side,
simply
Skeleton,
did not work in
everything
the
I'm hearing
context
here
of a
so
tactical
far,
game. For example,
you
we had
heard
something like
correctly.
150 different weapons. This sounds good,
You're
but the
not
time
wrong
spent
for
rendering them
not
and
playing
making
this
sure that
game
each
at this
one had
point
its stats
here.
set up correctly was time that could have been better spent playtesting
And
missions. This
like I
led
said,
to
I'm kind of
another
going this in
problem. We
a
had so many
I have never
objects
touched a
that it was
game
difficult to
retrospective.
differentiate clearly between them. In fact, all
If
of
I
our
had to pick a
pistols are
fall
almost
game
completely
to
useless in
not
the
play,
game
this
as
is
they do
definitely
not
on that
do enough
list now.
damage and offer
Because
no
I don't like
player
I'm not a
advantage over an
huge fan of
SMG.
tactics game anyway.
The
I'm
character
kind of
stats
ass at
were
them.
also overly
But it's like,
complex
oh, if the
for a
game also
tactical
is
game.
not
We
good
had
writing
18
and does not
different
get me
skills, some of
engaged,
which
why
were
the
very
fuck would I
poorly
want to play
differentiated,
for
such as the difference
any
between doctor
reason?
and first aid. In our defense, Fallout also implemented these things badly, but I think we should have played the original Fallout games in a much more critical manner, noting things that just did not work in the original and stripping them out. The golden motto should have been, if it doesn't do something useful, or if there is another thing in the game which does nearly the same thing, take it out. We stripped out some stuff, such as the speech skill, but added far more than we removed. The huge selection of stuff on offer is one of the game's selling points, but it has affected the quality of the finished product.
All right, sorry.
In the end, I don't think...
Another side question out of curiosity here. Well, first of all, we got some real golfers coming in from the side of Get Serious. Thank you for your community with mine. Happy to have you all here. Thank you so much. Well, I inadvertently have the video paused. I wasn't positive for the raid, but hey, sometimes things just work out. Name's Rieto, variety streamer on twitch.tv.com. We're taking a pretty chill, easy bonus stream day out here as we continue to nestle through the thorough look at Fallout, which is, as you can probably see on screen, 9 hours long, 9+ hours long. So we're at part 3 of this. We're going to cover a few more games between Fallout Tactics, Van Buren, something else, and then Fallout 3 as well. We'll see where we're at when we get to Fallout 3. Discord message, I've been in and out. Yo, I don't think I have. Let me check that out real quickly here. I assume it's important if you're telling me that now. Oh, shit. Yeah. Well, first let me ask my question here real quick for what I was originally going to ask. Okay, so they said they took out the speech skill from their original Fallout game for the tactics game. Is there any tactics RPG that use a speech skill inside of it? It's a sheer curiosity question. Because I don't play a lot of those like open world games and stuff like that. And so when I think of a speech skill being used, the only example I very much have is Deus Ex, not Human Revolution, but the one that came after that because I can't remember right now. And I realize I really love the speech skill in that game a lot. So I'm just kind of curious to see if there's anything else out there that is able to do that all the same. I am feeling better, though. Thank you so much, Cilias. I greatly appreciate that. Yeah, thankfully, I am much, much better. I'm feeling excellent as well. Tactics games could care more about battles than the RPG aspect. Okay, that makes sense. That does make sense. As was more of a like a... It's been so many years. I'm sure somebody has done it. I'm sure of that. But I was curious if that's become, quote-unquote, a thing now. Like, you can talk to certain enemies versus, like, yeah, I think, like, Fire Emblem's, like, the closest, right? It's not a speech skill. It's just go talk to this person, and then they'll join your army, and hooray. And just tactic games. Tactic games specifically. Very specifically tactics games in this case. In which case, I can only think of Fire Emblem, but I don't know. Is the new Rogue Trader? Oh, so that might be a recent thing as well. Yo, what's up, Amber? How you doing? To you as well. And enjoy your workout, by the way, Get Sillias. Hope you enjoy it. Plays a lot like XCOM, but tactics game. That makes sense to me. Shadowrun by genuinely don't remember. Oh, I guess, yeah. I didn't even think about that. I never played Shadowrun in any serious capacity, but it's one of those things that's like, that's true. That game might have it because it plays a lot like an actual tabletop RPG. So maybe they do have it as well. All right. Dubs, I'm going to send you over a call real quickly here. And then I'll have to get you set up and everything like that. But it shouldn't take too long because I'm at least moderately set up. So give me a second here. All right. Now I should be able to hear you. Cool. Now, you're not set up, I don't believe. So now you should be able to talk and people should be able to hear you. Try again.
Testing. Also, are your captions actually on screen?
Oh, they were supposed to be. They are not because streaming's fun. It's like that sometimes. Let me just hit refresh on it real quickly here. There we go.
Yeah, join the captions. Just like, have I paused the stream? No, they're just not there. No.
Yeah. Streaming's funny sometimes. It's like, we didn't load it.
Yeah, there you go.
Sweet. All right. In that case, I can make this smaller. That explains why I had this much smaller than before. All right. Cool. Awesome. There we go. So you said you've seen this video before, correct?
So, okay, it was mostly background noise, but for the most part, I'm just like, wait a second, this is... Oh, yes, I do remember this, because I now very vividly remember when he started, like slating, Fallout Tactics, and I was just like, yeah, okay, I recognize this now.
So we've come full
it was
circle.
A while ago. Yeah, it was a while ago, but it also is just like, yeah, no, this is a very good video, and I did watch the entire damn thing, so...
All right, you're going to have my full browser window because of how I'm set up currently.
Oh. It's all good.
Yeah.
Pop out. So put that shit there.
Awesome.
And pause this one. Play it for a second.
All right, here we go.
I think we have really kept the original Fallout.
Perfect. I've got sound.
And we compromised
cool,
the game design at the same time.
Fallout Brother Steel. I think Brother Here to Steal is
I quote so much of this
2 sections away.
So it's
here you
rare
go.
to see such a frank, vulnerable defense of a widely maligned work.
Were there 100 tabs? Because I deserve 100 tabs. I think I have like 200 on my phone right now, actually.
At all to please fans of Fallout 1 and 2, while simultaneously compromising the design of the tactics part of the game to attempt to please them. And yet, I also do largely agree with Oakton's defense. Even if feature creep is what killed Fallout Tactics, the wild diversity of that feature creep is the only thing keeping it from being completely banished from the canon, like the next game was. If you can manage to become invested enough in Fallout Tactics to make it past the Beastmaster missions with the fuzzy talking Deathclaws and the absolutely interminable Quincy hostage rescue mission and into the third act, the game more or less immediately shifts into a completely different mode and method of engagement. The mutants are back, and now it's time for war. There are a lot of aspects of the production that I actually do enjoy with Tactics, one favorite being the very lengthy transition narration between the game's acts. The super mutant threat had only been very background before the act transition, and then the first mission begins in the middle of the action. A clever part of the framing is that as a conscript, your squad is deprioritized and mistrusted for the most important missions until much later. So the front lines and the main plot advance ahead of you as your squad crushes local issues of lesser importance. The very first mission gives you an armored personnel carrier right off the bat and throws you into a losing battle, trying to rescue the wounded and dying squads who were, in previous missions, given preferential treatment to yours. The map is huge, and the threats are an intense difficulty spike that not many players bother to push through, reading play reviews. The heavy automatic weapons the mutants use, and which will feature every mission from now on, have a critical chance that can easily do instant lethal damage on an unpredictable basis. Quick saving and quick loading becomes the only way to effectively navigate this.
The dawn testing, let's go!
About 1 in 10 attacks against your squad are absolute slaughters. If a heavy automatic weapon gets the right angle on your squad, such as during a turn-based mode where you have less control over battlefield movements, it can be a whole party wipe instantly. It takes an active commitment to the game to get through this point, and yet, Once you do, the story begins better than it had in a long time.
Oh.
Beginning with this disastrous battle, your squad rapidly rises to prominence. You become the tip of the spear in missions that feel less like the adventures of the previous act, and more like genuine battles in a real war. A whole army arrayed against your scrappy squad of now veteran wasteland badasses. You've always faced bad odds and huge numbers of enemies proportional to your 6-person squad, but the sudden and unpredictable lethality of this act's weapons and the toughness of the mutants wielding them makes a person feel visibly, obviously, outclassed. A failure to adequately playtest and balance these later chapters has led, ironically, to a hostility that feels very narratively appropriate and even rewarding. The battles are pretty interesting, too. There's a fight
credit
through
where
an industrial town
due.
to
That's
destroy
actually
a
pretty
series of
cool.
generators
Yeah,
and shut
that
down
it
a secret
happened to work
research
out.
base dedicated to trying to solve the mutants' long-standing sterility issue, which is a nice lore callback. More complicated is this mission to secure an atomic bomb that a bunch of atom-worshipping ghouls have got on a church altar. Save the town, they give you the bomb. The attacks come in multiple, often simultaneously overlapping waves, and you need to decide how to divide your squad up among the town's 3 approaches. Once the initial attack is over, you need to go across the battle lines and kill all the super mutant commanders. In real-time combat mode, the town defense is completely impossible. Too much happens at once with consequences that are too unpredictable. Turn-based mode takes forever by comparison.
Oh, damn.
So many enemies and allies to cycle through.
Well, I gotta pause for a second here because there's a bunch of hikes in here.
Worm, hooties, worm, hut,
Football.
worm, hooties, worm,
Football.
worm, hut.
Everyone's
John
talking
Madden.
about football. Yeah, John Madden. Everyone talking about football. Football. What the fuck? Football. Yo, how you doing, Oozworm? Thank you so much for the raid. Thank you for your wonderful community in with mine. Hopefully, you finish off the stream strong. You got the Minecraft, some cool things, and you get to actually get some rest. Mind you, you're kind of in the middle of the day, so it doesn't really matter at this point here. But hopefully you're all having a good one. Let me introduce myself if you don't know me at this time here. But name's Ryudo. I'm joined with Dr. Dubs on the mic as well. And we're just kind of taking a nice chill day, looking at the thorough look at the Fallout series, which is, as you might be able to see on your screen, a 9-hour video. So we're doing it in parts. And we're up to part 3 right now. We're going through Fallout Tactics. We're going to go through afterwards Van Buren, Brotherhood of Steel. Then there'll be Fallout 3, but I'll see where we're at hours-wise before then, because I do have some stuff I have to do later tonight as well, and see if we can start that up and finish it up all the same. But yo, what's good? What's good, Flare Star? What's good, Oozworm, of course? With that said, however, Dial the Dew, Shiny Empty Head, Ty, Baltus, Leedsy, good to see you as well. I'm not following you. How dare you, Leedsy? I will never forgive you. I don't care. You could do whatever you want. You're a grown-ass person. You could do whatever you want. You're an adult. But terrible things happen. We raised a lot of money, so it was worth it. Exactly the key point, as I always feel when it comes to charity streams. You love to see it, and I'm glad that you found that success. Thank you, everyone, by the way, for throwing money at Oozworm's charity stream. Outside looking in, mind you, obviously it doesn't benefit me in any way, shape, or form, but I do say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for actually taking the time and money to make the stream a success. I always love it to see a successful charity stream on twitch.tv.com, and especially from friends close to me. I had to make amends. Nope, it's too late. Someone banned Leedsy for the second time in 24 hours. Oh, gosh. Yeah, exactly. You know that you're technically not supposed to be on Twitch, right? That's right, Flare Sword. See? So you can't admit to being a child now. Don't let me know. But, so, yeah, that said, if you're joining us at this point, you're like, I don't know what the fuck a Fallout is. Hey, neither do I. That's why I'm watching this whole damn thing, so I can get an overview of what Fallout is. So just join me in the battle of learning what the fuck a Fallout is, and if you want to watch it a little bit later as well, here is the link in chat for anyone who might want to intake the first 2 hours of the video. And with that, I will be hitting play once again.
It's a good ass video.
It's a very good video so far. It's very thorough.
It makes the battle manageable this way.
It's just got a fantastic background voice.
It really does. Oh my gosh.
Setups. The maps are filled with not only the main objectives and a handful of secondary tasks, there are tons of little hidden items and enemies everywhere. The maps are, in terms of user experience, definitely too huge and slow the pacing tremendously, but the developers themselves display a lot of personality and creativity in how they filled the maps and chose to reward exploration within them. The best, clearest examples of both the advantages and drawbacks are illustrated by what I think is the most ambitious failure of the game, the Quincy hostage crisis. Across the town are something like 5 separate, discrete hostage situations. If you are spotted, for any reason, that enemy will immediately run to trigger an alarm. If the rooftop alarm above the prison is sounded, all the hostages in all the buildings are simultaneously executed. You have to sneak into the town hall, solve that without any enemy survivors or triggered alarms, go through an underground passage, then go up 3 stories of the prison to the rooftop where the sheriff and the alarm are both under extremely close watch. I have never beaten this mission before with all good outcomes, and it took me nearly 3 total hours of saving and reloading to do it this time. Was it worth it? Hell no, but it's possible. There are hostage situations unimportant to the Brotherhood in Quincy, such as the Ghouls Ghetto and the brothel. Solving these optional hostage encounters earns you not just the gratitude of the town, but special recruits for your efforts. And at the top right corner of the map is a church with no apparent value at all. If you go up that way anyway, you get a tough fight with the Deathclaw and a hidden chest packed with a very fancy, expensive armor found here long before it becomes available from the Quartermaster. The interactivity of Fallout Tactics is fiddly, irritating, easily failed, and ultimately pointless in many ways, but hot damn if it doesn't still leave an impression of real complexity. With another year's development time and a clearer vision, Fallout Tactics might truly have been a third classic. As it stands, a person is better off just giving Wasteland 2 and 3 a try. They'll scratch the same itch without feeling so unbalanced and unpredictable.
Okay, so they've pulled elements from it, but none of it really
is that recognizably Fallout art style.
Is a source of tactics, basically, Amber. Is that correct?
Uncanny presentation here in Tactics.
Don't cry, Lizzie.
One of the things the
I
developers
forgive
were really proud of
you.
with
You're
Fallout Tactics are the
fine
animations.
until you're
I strongly
not.
agree with that. The animations and sound effects, particularly for explosions and sudden eruptions of gore, feel a lot punchier and more immediate than the animations in Fallout 1 and 2. There's just a tremendous number of ways for things to die in Fallout Tactics, and the relatively instant transition from damage applied to the animation being played really sells the impression of a hostile, dangerous wasteland. The basic feeling of the world is right. It's just the little details that are odd, the design of Nuka-Cola and Vault-Tec billboards and ads, for instance, or how Deathclaws are both furry and can talk. The talking Deathclaw thing was just a one-off subplot in Fallout 2, but Tactics seems to generally be kind of confused about the kind of monster that Deathclaws are supposed to be, giving them some goat-like qualities such as fur and curved horns. If you release the Deathclaw matriarch in the finale of the Beastmaster missions instead of killing her, you can even add Deathclaw recruits to your squad. Another odd aspect is
I cannot remember what a
preference for
Deathclaw is. If
real-world
anyone wants to
weapons and
refresh
equipment
me, by the
as opposed to
way.
creating fictional counterparts.
Big ass
Like
things
how
which
most
kill
mutants
you in
Fallout
1 or 2
Tactics wield a
swipes,
SAW,
which are just
squad assault
big
weapon, which is a
mutant
modern military
things
tool
which just
with nothing
existed.
really retro about
They're,
it.
they are
Very
literally
small.
just
There are
literally
World
just
War II
forces of
weapons like the
nature.
MP-42 and
Oh,
the
okay,
M1
gotcha.
cannon. The variety is
Okay,
huge, but
so
the variety is
thus
very
I probably
pointless.
might not
They do
remember
nothing but
specifically.
further confuse the
Yeah,
ammunition
you encounter
and it
one,
is
you're
very
probably
confusing.
dead.
There's like 6 different
Okay,
kinds of
you're
shotgun
already
shells,
done.
and some weapons
Yeah.
require very rare and weird
Except in
bullet
Fallout 4.
sizes. The easiest
Oh.
way to figure out what a gun
Well,
takes
I guess
is
we'll
to
get there
unload it in the
eventually.
inventory. While scavenging everything you can
I
from
mean,
a battlefield
no
can
one doesn't
feel
talk
rewarding,
about
the
it, but
actual
Smite
process
very
of
much
returning
showed
to
off
base
the
with bulging
Deathclaws are kind of a
pockets swimming
joke.
riches is extremely tedious. You're clicking and dragging a colossal amount of shit.
I'll have to
Yeah,
ask about
they
it when we
cause
get
death
there.
and have
then
claws.
finally
And have
the
claws.
Quartermaster.
It's on the
If you
10.
sell
What was I
each
thinking?
character's
What was
whole
he
individual
thinking?
From that character, it uses that character's individual barter skill. So if you want the best price, you need to plant a guy right in front of the Quartermaster, drag everyone else's shit onto them while they become immobile from the weight, and then finally drag all of that shit one last time into the Quartermaster's inventory for that sweet, sweet Brotherhood script.
They are easier.
It adds
Okay,
around
gotcha,
10
gotcha.
or more minutes of total downtime to the
Yeah,
end
the first
of
thing you do
every
in game
mission.
is kill a
And for
Deathclaw.
what?
Oh,
Scrim
well, that
can
really
save you
undersells
all
them.
this harass and you can
Yep.
afford to mostly equip your squad with power armor, but when it becomes available,
Evolve from the
in fair fact,
chameleons
there
in
are
terms of
recurring
big
characters
murder
and extra
lizards?
dialogue to be
Okay,
found by
I
exploring
understand.
bunkers in between missions, which can add a
Yeah.
small extra feeling of continuity, but it's minimal, and the dialogue is often just bad jokes anyway. The only recurring characters of real note are your commanders.
There is
particularly
an
General Barnaby,
infamously
who's
good
voiced
area
by
in
none other
Fallout
than
New
R. Lee
Vegas, which
Ermey.
is just literally just
Barnaby's
a
vision
canyon
gets
full of
shaped the
Deathclaws.
Brotherhood into the cruel defender it is. He's
I
utterly
figure you just
callous
get
at anything that won't
murderized
yield to the
upon
Brotherhood
entry?
and meet
Yeah.
its expectations.
Yeah, the
He's
thing is,
explicitly
like,
hateful
it's a
towards
shortcut to get to
all
where you
humans.
actually want
Barnaby's
to
replacement,
go,
General Decker,
and
is more
everyone's telling you,
professional,
yeah,
less
don't go
bombastic,
through
and
there.
is
If
willing to
you
accept
you
whatever
can
tools
if you
are handed
want,
to
but
him
like,
to win the war.
no, go
At
around.
the very end of the story, you barrack, you
And it's
circle back
it's
around
it
to what
is
happened in the
it
opening
is a hell of a
cutscene,
shortcut,
coming across
but
a crashed
also
Zeppelin
it's
outside
it
this
is
brutal
like,
stronghold,
damn,
which
your
is a
sneak
sign.
better be good.
Their new
Oh,
leader
yeah,
is
yeah.
none
There's
other
no
than
way
the
to fight
lost
through it at
Brotherhood
that point, I
paladin.
figure.
He's waged this
Yeah.
war, ironically, for the same reason you have. It's what he thought he had to do
They'll
to win
kill
the
anyone
greater
unaware
war
or
ahead of it.
underprepared, but
Just
they
as you
always have
recruited
one or
and
two glaring
rebuilt
weaknesses.
from whoever
Oh,
and
okay,
whatever
okay.
was
So
available.
you can
So
know
did
the
he,
matchup
because
as well.
the real war hasn't even
Yeah,
begun. The end of the first
Like
act
you come
actually
back there
foreshadowed it
later
really
to
well.
when
The
you've got
Raider
like
leaders had
actual
some kind of
weaponry and
valuable
like
technology that they didn't
you
really
know
know what to do
you're
with.
at
Some
high
kind
up
of
high with
robot
sniper
war.
rifle.
There are small jokes and references to the
Oh,
threat
yeah,
all
yeah. You
throughout
can
the game.
you outsmart,
It's actually
outplay.
really well done.
They're
for
not just like gonna
foreshadowing
jump
that
off the
it
top of
is.
a cliff
And
or
if the
something
game
like
had
that.
actually displayed
Nope.
that level of structure
Okay.
and consideration elsewhere in the script,
Only
the
give you
whole
minigun and
impression
power armor
might
for
have
that
been a
first
lot better.
DEFCON.
It's
Oh,
only in
okay.
these
So it's
last
not
two
hard to
acts
kill.
that we move
Oh, still
farther
not hard to
into
kill
the
with no
game
weapons
and gain
anyway.
power curve. The
Never
Fallout
mind.
tactics to begin
Like, oh,
reaching
that makes
for more
sense. Oh, never
experimental
mind.
ideas and mission
Also, what's up,
designs,
Empress? Good to see you as
as
well.
making plain the reasons that Fallout Tactics could never have been canon.
Yeah, if he's got
even
the
if it
shotgun or
had
pistol
been
in
that
the other
better
games,
game.
FO1, 2.
The war against the
Yours-
robots is
yours dead.
interesting as
Gotcha.
a war because the robots
Okay.
are not only
Power
completely
scaling them in my
indifferent to
head
life,
here.
they're largely indifferent to defeat. They feel no pain and they just build more of themselves. It becomes apparent from the beginning that a head-on conflict is impossible, so the missions begin to take on the form of a guerrilla war, hit-and-run raids against more important targets. Here, at the height of the player's power curve, they're more mechanically and narratively vulnerable than they've ever been. It's a very satisfying way to get a player to reinvest themselves in the push forward for this last part of the game. The escalation through the fifth act especially is pretty great because of the size of the robots that the game starts to send your way. The tone becomes closer to straight sci-fi than anything traditionally Fallout, which I consider a positive because the ways in which it's tried to copy Fallout's tone have been so inconsistent and disappointing. This, at least, is new and unique to this particular game. I think something that I enjoy about Fallout Tactics is how it feels like an echo of what would happen in Fallout 1 if you took too long. The mutant army would advance and destroy the towns you worked so hard to help or hinder. The robot war in Tactics is like arriving late to that scenario, pushing into towns and territories already razed and slaughtered by the mutant army.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
Remember
desperate
that?
hopelessness to it that kind of elevates the whole thing and better justifies the frame of focusing on army versus army instead of the role of the individual within larger conflicts. There's two missions that try to incorporate non-hostile towns and settlements into the mix, and the result is mostly pretty disappointing. But it's disappointing in interesting ways, at least. Without speech, gambling and barter become the only ways in which NPCs can be useful to a player. The first mission of Act 4 is Junction City, where it's reported the town destroyed a robot all on their own. Your task is to gather the pieces of the robot and figure out what happened. The main quest involves shooting up a high-tech gang of raiders called the Reavers, where they've taken over a farmhouse on the edge of town and killed everyone who lived there. But there's other robot parts to be found, including a false part that's just a sex toy and a toaster glued together.
Yep.
Without being able to express anything as a player character.
Wow, they
any side
really
quest
went into
becomes
that whole
inherently
we're
binary,
making
do or
sex
not.
jokes at the bottom rung.
Gambling for something or bartering for something are dramatically flat when gambling is just a hidden dice roll against your skill stat. Even creating this whole town, the format is so far removed from an actual RPG that none of the town is meaningfully interactive, and the writing is so poor compared to Fallout 1 or 2.
Oh, yeah, for
that none of the
3D versus like
characters in the
Hexspace.
town
Okay,
seem
no, that makes a
real
lot of sense
or
as well,
meaningful.
too.
Angry Rick, the bartender, is angry, but if you keep clicking on him, he acts scared for some reason and hands over his part. It just serves to show how much of the Fallout experience is missing. The best attempt at a real side quest is recruiting a new mechanic for the Brotherhood who won't leave her injured dad unless you help, so you use your doctor skill, and that's that. One step is the maximum complexity for even the good RPG-style quests and tactics. The complex
One and
objectives
done.
and multiple steps are all tied into the gameplay concerns instead. The second, slightly non-combatant
that's
town
basically
map is
what
called
Fallout
Coldwater,
Tactics is. It's a
effectively another
tactics
town-wide
games, and
hostage
tactics games
situation where
are
thieves,
mostly
ironically from
the
Quincy,
battles and
poisoned
everything.
that town's garrison and made off with
So they're
a
trying to
co-op.
incorporate a lot
It's
of
to
the
you to
energy
get it
from the
back.
earlier games where
The
it's
town
like
is
there's
arranged into
complexity, there's
layers,
stats
with
that
each tier
allow
having fewer
the
non-combatants
role-playing
and higher
aspect
difficulty.
is just completely
There
gone.
are very few
But they
difficult
didn't
hostage
stop
situations
leaning
this
into.
time around, and no
They didn't
town-wide
say.
alarms.
They,
It's
yeah, they
easy
did. Yeah,
compared
they
to
still
the
wanted to
late
make it
game, which is
Fallout, so they
surprising,
didn't
but kind of highlights
commit
why
one way or the
robots
other,
are
which is what they were
necessary.
saying earlier as well.
There needs to be another escalation after the mutant war. There's no way to go back to this style of mission without it feeling a little
Blow
underwhelming.
applause and random clue
At the end of
cache.
Act 4, you need to rescue the leadership
It seems they have
of
like
the Reavers from the
a
robots
certain
who have
level of
destroyed their headquarters.
crudity
If
from
you do, the Reavers
what
will
Fallout
submit
games
to the
I've watched
Brotherhood.
people stream.
It's a good enough
that
mission, although
seems to
any
be
kind
very
of
funny when
escort
they
quest
incorporate
becomes
it, but it's
frustrating
still like there's a
dicey
line
with
of like
constant danger
absurdity and
critical
there's a line
hits,
of like
popping any
this shit is
character
fucking
into a blunt
serious though.
firework in just one attack.
Yeah.
This is the end of the post-apocalyptic part of the game. Everything ahead of here is just pure robot sci-fi. This sci-fi escalation keeps cranking up all the way through to a battle on the face of the mountain that held the NORAD base to blow up the door to NORAD with a direct nuclear detonation. I actually loved this last mission. Escorting the nuke, fiddly as it is, just feels climactic as hell. and once the nuke is set, you gotta book it back down the mountain before it detonates in classic Fallout style. Fallout Tactics isn't a game that gets better or worse as it goes along. It fluctuates wildly and constantly between delivering exactly the experience it advertised and seeming confused about what the Fallout experience even is in the first place. The short and pithy thing is to say that Fallout Tactics sucks and isn't worth playing, and that's true enough to work as shorthand, but the game is genuinely far too huge and far too weird for that to be wholly accurate either. If it had been less ambitious, it might have been a tighter game, and it might have remained canonical too if it had displayed some restraint. Instead, it not only pits you against a giant robot army, it lets you decide what to do with that robot army, and the ramifications of that are just way too much for any subsequent game to ever accommodate. There's an idea that Fallout Tactics isn't canon because of all the strange little errors, omissions, or confusions like the fuzzy talking Deathclaws, but ultimately all these things can smooth out in the wash when adapting the larger strips of the story to fitting in with the setting as time goes on. It's these larger creative choices in the back half of the game that are just completely unworkable, like Vault Zero. The crowning jewel of the entire Vault network, a refuge for the best and brightest across all industries and branches of government. While held in cryogenic stasis, their brains would be used to power a supercomputer called the Calculator. After all this time, the Sleepers' brains have decayed, and once the network became corrupted enough, the Calculator released robots to enact the Pacification Protocol. The Vault is now full of the drooling remnants of the old world's ruling class. What the Calculator craves now, of course, is more brains, bigger brains, better brains, your brain, if you're willing to part with it. Fallout Tactics doesn't have ending slides that reflect anything beyond what you're willing to do at this last moment of the game, with one odd exception. Back in Act 3, when the mutants captured Barnaky, the mutants were later ambushed by robots. You finally come across Barnaky's corpse at a robot facility for human experimentation and disposal. The body has a locket from his late wife, Maria. If you keep that locket with
so it's
you
like,
and
yeah,
carry
the
it
worst
all
of
the way
all
to the
worlds kind of
ending,
effectively
a robot
flare
Barnaky
sword.
will
Gotcha.
lay down his arms. You can now, at last, ask him to donate his brain instead of yours. Even though this ending of Fallout Tactics takes the most amount of work, it creates the worst outcome. Barnaky is, in death, the exact bigot he was in life. He wages a purifying war against all mutants and outcasts, taking the harsh, judgmental, and predatory Brotherhood which he helmed in the first two acts to its ultimate conclusion. Genocide against all the mutants, regimented order for all the subjugated civilizations. If you have low karma, I guess you get a similar ending if you donate your brain, but the weird thing about that is that low karma is more a result of ignoring side objectives than it is about actual choice in any way. So if you've been engaging with the game the way the game asks you to, you just won't see that bad karma ending. If you donate your brain with positive karma, instead you get a utopian ending where you use the robots to build an inclusive, technologically advanced society where equality is guaranteed by a limitless army of robot soldiers. It hints towards future conflict with the older Brotherhood, but it's pretty clear that this would be a conflict heavily weighted in your favor. This is what makes it canonically impossible to account for. You solve the world's problems. Done and done. Sure, there's still conflict, but since you're fighting in favor of utopia, not kill all bipedal creatures, it's not likely that anything will matter in the face of total technological superiority, unlimited resources, and a popular mandate. You literally cannot tell a compelling broad-scale conflict again within this timeline while accounting for these choices regarding the robot army. The answer will always and forever be, and then the benevolent robot army fixed it. Telling stories grounded in realism and character aren't just an artistic affectation. By limiting the scale of your conflict and creating proportional conclusions, you're also leaving room for it to sit side by side with other complementary sequels and stories. This ending for Fallout Tactics is a franchise checkmate, despite being the good ending. The only narratively viable ending is the neutral ending you get by destroying the Calculator despite its tempting offer. Your character leads the new Brotherhood, and they become a major regional power, but they are still beset by corruption and hostility. It's an ending proportional to the setting. It could be canonical, except then you actually would have to acknowledge all the other weird inconsistencies like the fuzzy Deathclaws. It's better to throw this particular baby out with the bathwater. Fallout what? Brotherhood of who? What was kept, interestingly, is the central idea of the Brotherhood pursuing the super mutant army east, following along in Zeppelins. Bethesda's Fallout 3 begins with this idea as a core part of the lore and the primary justification for the recycling of the iconography of the Brotherhood of Steel, despite shifting the setting thousands of miles across the open wasteland. So, Fallout Tactics might not be canonical, but it's still given some vague room by the franchise at large to exist without too much contradiction. And it was always meant to be a spin-off anyway. Interplay's actual Fallout 3 was already in the early stages of development over at Black Isle under the codename Van Buren. Van Buren haunts the Fallout franchise.
Okay, so
In
kind of
so
a
many
parallel
Fallout
universe at this
discussions,
point
there
for
has
Fallout
to be
Tactics.
that one guy, or sometimes more than one guy, who says,
God.
you know, Fallout 3
flare
isn't
sword.
the real
Yeah.
Fallout 3. The real
Van Buren was
Fallout
talked
3
about a
never
little
even
bit
came out. And it's
in
so
fear.
easy to say
Here
this.
we go.
As complete hypothetical, there's no reason why Van Buren couldn't be the most pure and perfect RPG of all time. No one will know. It's Schrodinger's Fallout. It exists in an unresolved superposition where it is at once the best game that might have ever been, or just another mid-2000s flop, the lid forever sealed, the determination forever unmade. All that's left to indicate the game's actual direction is this tech demo and some surviving design documents. The tech demo begins pre-war, where you're escorted by some army fellow to the doors of a vault while fighting communist insurgents and trying on motorcycle helmets. The early 3D graphics and interface are clearly some distant sibling of the first Neverwinter Nights game. The writing is just placeholder stuff, it doesn't amount to much of anything. Taken alone, the Van Buren tech demo is simply that, a tech demo, a proof of concept that there could have been a AAA Fallout game during an era that was incorrectly heralded at the time as the decline and death of the PC gaming era. It promises that it could have existed, nothing more, nothing less. There is simply no way to divine any actual quality from the tech demo itself, so rough and empty and early it is in the developmental process. And yet, it has been built up in the minds of many defenders of the classic Fallouts as some kind of precious artifact, a lost ark, or a holy grail of Fallout whose blinding perfection would wipe away any affection for the modern Bethesda-era titles. The funny thing about this particular lens of nostalgia is that most of what fragments remain of Van Buren have long been cannibalized into later sequels anyway. This beginning, for instance, with a pre-war introduction pivoting to some kind of cryogenic time skip, that's exactly what Fallout 4 decided to open with. The proposed ending of Van Buren, where the player found themselves in control of a missile platform and unable to save everyone, was adapted into the ending of the Fallout New Vegas DLC, Lonesome Road, where the player finds themselves able to launch nuclear attacks at either the NCR, Caesar's Legion, both, or neither. The entire game of New Vegas is made by many of the same people who would have made Van Buren. During early production, developers Fergus Urquhart, Chris Avallone, and 3 others quit Black Isle over a lack of confidence in Titus Interactive, Interplay's new owners. They founded Obsidian Entertainment, taking on many other Black Isle refugees when, in late 2003, Interplay shut down Black Isle entirely and let everyone go. Fallout New Vegas is Van Buren, effectively, yet the ghost of the project haunts fan perception of Fallout's lifetime direction as a franchise. It's strange to me that no one seems to consider the possibility that Van Buren 2 might have been a disappointment. The early 2000s were not the best era for CRPGs, and the rudimentary 3D lacks the personality of both the older
so they keep pointing at it and say,
and the
no, this
later
is the
open
real
world
Fallout
titles.
3.
Obsidian themselves dropped the ball with their open world off-brand spiritual
maybe,
successor to New Vegas, The
but,
Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds was,
hanging on to that
on
would
paper,
suck, I feel like,
everything
as a
I wanted
fan.
from a Fallout-style game, and
It'd be
I found
difficult,
it
I should
difficult to
say.
become invested and engaged by the game's world and its writing. Van Buren is certainly, on paper, everything I want from a Fallout-style game. It's just that this was never actually any kind of guarantee or promise. It was only ever a series of unrealized intentions. For some, Van Buren
Titus from
represents a lost
64, which is like,
direction
how?
of the franchise. What it could have been if Interplay never lost the rights, which is odd to me, because what Interplay actually did with the rights to Fallout Next did so much damage to the franchise's reputation and value that Bethesda was able to buy the whole goddamn thing for a song. Growing up as a PC gamer without consoles, this was the end of the Fallout story for me in my youth. Van Buren had failed, Fallout as a property was owned by a hollowed-out shell of Interplay's former self.
People seem to talk about pretty highly about New Vegas, correct?
If I'd owned a console, however, I would have had to suffer one final insult and injury to the franchise before it became an essentially abandoned property for a couple of years. I was vaguely aware of a Fallout game from 2004
way better than Fallout
Brotherhood
3.
of Steel
Anyway,
when
yeah,
I did
this
my first
happened.
video, but I chose not to even mention it to just keep things moving along.
What?
I didn't think anyone would notice or miss it. So allow me to read for you what is literally the very first YouTube comment I ever received over 10 years ago now. Quote, where is Fallout Brotherhood of Steel? Did I skip over it, or are you another person who knows nothing? Nope, it's clear to me you said Interplay went out of business, and it was clear there wasn't going to be another Fallout until Fallout 3. But looking at Brotherhood of Steel, made by Interplay, it would seem you know nothing about Fallout, which brings me to the question, why did you make this video? End quote. Well, apparently because I'm just a big asshole, which is the answer to pretty much all the thousands of questions like it I've received in the past 10 years. But you know what? It's true. As much as we all would like to pretend that it simply never happened, 2004's Brotherhood of Steel for Xbox and PlayStation 2 did happen. And I actually agree that a full franchise retrospective is kind of incomplete without it. So, buddy, pal, friend, this one's for you. What makes this forsaken game an important part of the Fallout story is that it represents the true creative nadir of what can be done with the setting. It is so truly unimaginative and devoid of redeeming qualities that it completely recontextualizes any complaints a person might have with Bethesda's stewardship of the franchise. When we talk about Fallout 76 as an experimental deviation of established formula with a more action-focused perspective, it is plain to see that the amount of creativity and effort that went into Fallout 76 is actually substantial compared to what it looks like to truly, genuinely not try at all. Fallout 76 tries very hard at what's essentially a misguided premise and format. So before we judge that game based on the ways it negatively interacts with established Fallout precedents and canon,
I like EXs.
Let's set a baseline of what a true
but I understand
of the tone and setting looks like. Let's exhume together the long-buried corpse of this game so famously awful.
God, every time I look at this, I'm just like, man, did you ever play Loaded?
Xbox 360. I ended up using an emulator to get it going, which creates this bug.
Oh, it was a PlayStation, like a sort of twin-stick shooter kind of thing, without twin stick.
I played the whole damn thing as it was in 2004. When I started doing
like
videos,
Smash
I didn't really
TV
think of myself as a critic. I just wanted to try making a video about my favorite games.
Loaded Midget.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, Loaded Midget. It looks like Loaded. All right, I gotta Google this on my side screen here.
Did become my job. I finished 2004's Brotherhood of Steel out of professional obligation. Sometimes the job of a critic is to be the standard bearer for meaningful art.
Oh, you said ow right when the guy got hit. I was like, what? Well, he did get hit. You're right.
Waiters in a gas mask open up the manhole cover and go deep into the creative sewers where only the most foul and unwanted.
This was your first Fallout?
As a fan, I could easily pretend that Brotherhood of Steel never happened.
Just wow.
I never played it, never meant anything to me. I can't do that as a critic. Brotherhood of Steel does mean something historically. It was a game so universally despised for such obvious reasons that it made just about everyone give up entirely on the idea of ever seeing a AAA Fallout game again. On paper, Brotherhood of Steel doesn't sound like
I've never seen Loaded, but it does look exactly the same almost.
There was an action spin-off from the Baldur's Gate series called Dark Alliance, which took a 3D dungeon crawling approach to the setting. Dark Alliance did well enough and was a reasonable creative choice to make. There's always been a demand for a kind of mechanics-light D&D experience, like how the board game HeroQuest filled a niche by creating dungeon-crawling adventures that could be solved in a single sitting with minimal roleplay.
Oh shit, I've got
Dark
that.
Alliance had its own sequel, also released in
I don't know what that is, but
the games
sounds
are fine
cool.
for what they are.
Sounds like a cool idea.
There's a problem with giving Fallout the same
Yeah,
adventure treatment, especially if there's
that
already a
game.
positive
We
reason
pulled
for
out
doing
the
it that way.
yeah, we pulled out the attic
It's that
like
same exact difference
last
of setting
year.
that made Fallout
Oh,
1
so you
unique
have
and
it
fancy
right
like
now.
Baldur's Gate, that also
Yeah,
damns
the,
Fallout
oh
here in
god,
its
what was it called
transition
again?
to a lighter,
Heroes
more
Quest?
casual format.
Heroes Quest,
Dark
yeah.
Alliance,
Yeah.
as a licensed D&D product, had to fit within certain standards of taste, of quality. It had to be consistent in most ways with the broader line of multimedia D&D products. High fantasy is a known, established genre with tropes that a game doesn't have to be especially thoughtful or careful to fulfill.
Okay,
It's
I pulled it
hard
up
to
out of curiosity. So it looks kind of like
misunderstand what a D&D
a
dungeon
board
crawl
game
is
about
supposed to be.
Clue almost.
Brotherhood
Like
of
the
Steel
setup, I
knows
should
that
say.
Fallout is deliberately different from the
Yeah,
traditional
let me
style of
check
high
to see if
fantasy.
it's-
It gets
yeah.
that far, at least. What it absolutely cannot conceive is why the difference exists. It has no interest in historical reference or dark ironies. It has no interest in its characters, even as vehicles for satire. It doesn't even lean into 50s
It wasn't
retro
actually
futurism in the art
this.
style.
However, I did have
Gameplay
something
is
very,
just
very
top-down
similar,
arcade
and
action with
which
nothing special
was
to
actually
distinguish it.
older.
It's Dark Alliance for guns,
Older,
but
okay.
somehow
I mean, that would make
even worse
sense
than that.
though, around the time where D&D, I
was
assume,
born from
closer to
graph
when
paper
D&D
and
came out or became
interconnected
popular.
boxes. That is so core to the experience that even modern
Does
dungeon
dread the
crawls have maps that can
Formula, I
mostly
guess,
be
of the
translated
boys
back
fame.
into
Oh
Greek
shit.
paper. Fallout 1 and 2 tried to do something a little
Alright,
different.
that is actually a
While
really
linear
cool
and
fun
based
fact,
on
on
just
the
a
other hand.
handful of
Oh my
maps,
gosh.
Fallout 1 and 2 were less about the dungeon crawl and more about the wasteland itself, the feeling of a giant outdoor landscape populated with civilizations and townships. Dungeons were never the focus. They were just an occasional diversion for loot and variety. A fantasy setting allows more interesting things to be done with a dungeon environment than a contemporary setting would. High fantasy allows for use of magical color and flourishes of Gothic or Baroque architecture. To commit to using a contemporary setting, which it basically is even with the post-apocalyptic twist, without similarly committing to the strange mid-century art that flourishes.
Explode.
Crawler in a position to use the most mundane, familiar possible environments. To begin, you clear some raiders out from a bar. That's an easy enough way to start off, no problem. Then your first major objective. clears something like over 100 rad scorpions out of a warehouse.
100?
This is an hour-long task spread across 5 maps of warehouse.
100?
I wish I was kidding. Experientially, the worst sin Brotherhood of Steel commits is being boring. It is impossibly unendingly tedious and bland in terms of environmental design and combat design. Now, there are games that begin in that position and then elevate themselves through writing or a winning character performance or some kind of twist or hook in the gameplay. It happens. Not this time, though. Being aggressively, irritatingly boring is what makes the game hard to get through. What makes the game so famously bad is how it turns this floor into a ceiling by somehow going even lower with every other aspect of presentation. The first person you talk to in the game is Ruby, Wasteland Prostitute. It's not necessary to go over again what this kind of character style represents. We've already put it in the most concise terms possible. It's hot, it's wet, and it's bad. So instead of being annoyed at the sophomorically horny mid-2000s game for being that way, let's reframe things for a moment.
Most RPGs are like
something like
6
8 total side
and like
quests.
10 if they're
one of those is
insane.
helping Ruby look for her lost cat, Mr. Pussy. Leaving out any of the obvious judgments, let's just focus in on opportunity cost. Brotherhood of Steel, unlike Fallout Tactics, actually features dialogue trees, sort of. You end up asking pretty much all the questions on the list, nothing is actually altered by any dialogue choice, it's pretty much just a vague nod toward what once was with Fallout. It is, however, the first pivot that the franchise makes towards having fully voiced and lip-synced characters
Jesus, what a
for all
character
the NPCs,
design.
no matter how small the role, which takes time and takes money, and limits the amount of that kind of thing you can actually have in the game. Creatively, a development team must pick and choose which ideas and characters are worth making the cut. They need to figure out how to tell the best story and create the most vibrant world with the most limited amount of resources. And somehow, in spite of this, Mr. Pussy made the cut. The Mr. Pussy quest was passed through several stages of design. Someone had to write the Mr.
when you
Pussy
schedule it
dialogue.
like that,
The voice
yeah.
actors had to record the Mr. Pussy lines. Ruby's 3D model had to be rigged and animated to convey the
I guess
Mr.
his
Pussy
computer's
quest
in
to
the
the player.
bathroom, so he's going over
Bad
to
dialogue
Yoda and
bad
subbing
ideas
right
in
now.
movies are
Gizak.
actually more understandable because there are
When you
so
gotta
many fewer
sub, you gotta
steps
sub.
and so
Thank you
much
for
less
the
expense to
18 entire
realizing
days
a
of
bad
subscription.
idea in a
Thank you for
movie
joining
than
us
in
as we
game
learn about Mr. Pussy.
Bad dialogue in books is most understandable of all.
Hopefully
since
you're
all it
having a
takes is
good
one person
one.
sitting alone having a brain fart. In games, these things have so many layers of production to trickle down through before being fully realized. At some point, around some large office table, someone said something close to, I'm happy with how damage animations are coming, but I haven't gotten any updates on Mr. Pussy at all in a few days, and I'm wondering where we're at with implementation. There is so much time to stop and reconsider, so many stages at which someone might have provided some feedback to the contrary. When people talk shit about bad games, the easiest thing in the world to say is, this is dumb, the people who made it must be lazy and stupid. But this is, itself, lazy thinking, because the truth is typically always that bad media is made by perfectly smart and professional people who truly, truly ought to have known better. The whys and wherefores of bad media are so much more fascinating
Vital
than
bit
just
of Fallout
failures, because they're
storytelling.
compound failures.
You're not saying
They're
it's because
failures
Mr.
that
Pussy's your
multiple
first,
people
right?
agreed to and signed off on before unleashing them on others. Like, the simple and easy criticism people make about my stuff all the time is that I complain about the big titty girls in video games because I'm offended by sexuality or some damn thing. But what I actually don't enjoy is being pandered to like I'm a big baby who claps and drools every time I see a hint of side boob. It's frustrating to be treated as an audience as if I have no capacity for any kind of complexity. In this way, the most actively offensive character in this game is a Lara Croft Tomb Raider reference named Dr. Vidya. Do you get it? Because she's like in a video game and her name is Vidya?
No,
and she
explain
looks
it
like
slower,
a famous video
please.
game character. Please laugh, because it probably cost several $1,000s in developer labor to make that joke and put it in the game. I'm offended by the suggestion that I am such an absolute dweeb that I would think that Dr. Vidya was clever. Or take, instead, the Raider Matron, a leather thong wearing Betty Page knockoff. In response to criticism about the character, the developers kind of defensively hold up the Betty Page influence, saying, look, it's perfectly 1950s in some ways, what's your hang-up with the sexy ladies? The hang-up is neither with Betty Page or with sexy ladies, is that the Raider Matron is a very dumb 3D doodle of Betty Page with no rhyme or reason for being in the game at all besides to give me, the player, a little thrill when she jiggles like 2 grapefruits in a nylon sack. If I doodled a stick figure with big ol' knockers on a napkin, passed it to you over the table at lunch, and then raised my eyebrows up and down doing Groucho Marx noises, you would not be obligated to take me seriously either. One of my favorite dramas is Boogie Nights, Paul Thomas Anderson's 1997 epic about the early porn industry. In it, Burt Reynolds plays a porn producer who has these dreams of making movies that people would be so invested in the plots of that they'd sit in their own mess to find out what happens. The movie hinges on the transition from 1979 to 1980, from film to VHS, from idealism to cynicism, from partying to rock bottom. There's a very short scene I love where Jack Horner, Reynolds' character, is walking through his warehouse and goes to check on the editing room. "How is it?" he asks, and the editor, looking up from the extremely poor quality tape he's putting together, replies, what it is. And Jack just puts on this heavy frown and says, "Yeah." It's such a gorgeously compact little portrait of artistic apathy and compromise. Even if no one else believed in him, Jack Horner set out to make art in his chosen genre. But then cynicism and time took their toll, and he stopped believing in himself. There's a dark, sinister quality to the porn on Horner's monitor, suggesting some bleak things about the intended audience. Jack could be doing better, aiming higher, and he used to, back when he was more himself. But that's the harder thing, the more vulnerable thing. It is easier, if sadder, to simply say, what it is, and aim for the absolute bare minimum of pandering to the worst of your audience. In 2004, games weren't much more culturally respected than pornography, and that was even more true in 1997 when Fallout originally came out. But the developers behind the original games didn't give a damn about that reputation. They made art anyway. They made art so evocative and strong that 25 years later, there's still so much to talk about.
One of those ideas, like maybe it's better to get the game out no matter what type of thing.
Sifting through its guts,
sorry, I looked up.
What it is.
You know what it is what it is.
There are gestures towards a better game here and there when you're not playing a knockoff version of Gauntlet.
I'm still standing by my statement, though.
Entirely
Sometimes it's better just to get it out there because of
sucking
costs in there.
Is the crater, a lower abandoned tier of the game's initial setting of Carbon,
Yo,
Texas.
what's up, Toro?
There are
How you
houses to raid,
doing?
rusted out cars.
We're
big
learning about
chasms
what
and
might be
ground
the
hollow,
worst
but
of the
this way.
Fallout
Sure,
series,
there isn't
potentially.
really much to do. You can hit monsters
What
with a
it
stick
is,
or shoot
what
them
it
using the
is.
game's lifeless, weightless guns. Just getting the background.
Yeah,
was enough
I
to
love the early
immediately feel more
2000s games
enjoyable
that
than
didn't
the
have
previous
like
hours of killing
any
scorpions in a warehouse. Something that this game
like
and
any
Fallout
like
Tactics
sort of
both share
fluid
is a sense of being a cheap
like
knockoff
yeah.
of being an actual
so they just
official
have to
Fallout
just
release.
like spray
The absolute
particles
funniest,
like
most
they're
dated
like
thing
confetti
in Brotherhood
machine.
Steel
It's,
is
I
how
love
it has
them.
replaced
I love
all
that shit.
the
It's so
in-game
bad.
signage
It's
for
great.
Nuka-Cola
Also,
with a
wow.
sponsorship deal that
Speaking of
Nuka
early
negotiated with
2000s,
third-string
balls
energy
throwback.
beverage Balls Guarana. Stay up late,
Yeah.
drink balls. The ad suggests as a
fucking
big
go.
3D version of their studded for your pleasure bottle rises from its billboard. I
God, it
suppose
is-
It seems to me that
that
even
bottle
in
is
selling
felt
out,
like that.
the game
Oh,
owned the logo and didn't even try.
man.
For God's sake, the first game got Ron Perlman and Kelly Shalom on board. The fourth
Also,
series
what's up,
even had a
Ty?
reputation
How you
of
doing?
any kind. Are you truly telling me Balls Guarana is the best product placement deal that Interplay could have thrown together? I bet it was Balls who emailed them first. This is part of the game's infamy as a complete flop.
Let's be
The
real
Balls
here.
Guarana thing
Yeah, it
is
probably
an early
is,
meme about how
honestly.
spectacularly foolish a game looks when it sells out
Studded
that
Sprite
hard.
with energy drink
This is
stuff.
especially interesting when you
Yeah.
consider that 2004 broadly was such a
God,
remarkable and
that used to be the
transformative year
hottest
for
shit
video
around
games
the
as an art
2000s
medium.
era of
It was the
gaming.
year of Half-Life 2,
Everyone
Doom
wanted
3,
balls.
Fable. The team that left Interplay to form Obsidian released Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, an unfinished but remarkably clever RPG. The fame of the franchises that surrounded Fallout 1 and 2 on release, and the accomplishments of the major developers who worked on the original Fallouts, were rising to unheard of heights. And here was Brotherhood of Steel, with its derivative, rote gameplay, its awful dialogue arranged on a shriveled and sickly dialogue tree, and its Balls Guarana product placement deal. We can look back on the game now as being cheap and backwards, but it was actually cheap and backwards even the moment it was first released. That's the legacy it leaves.
And that was
Taking the
Amber's
Fallout name
first
in hand and
Fallout
clutching it
still.
tight as it dove off a reputational cliff.
How did
all
you-
at a moment when games
How did
were
you take
shifting
the
into a
game,
place
Amber?
of
I'm
greater
curious
prominence in
now.
pop
How did you
culture,
feel about the
more
game
impressive
after you played it?
presentation,
Or
longer cultural
maybe
reach. There was a moment
if
to be
after if you
had
even finished
here
the
in
game.
2004, and Fallout missed it. That's part of the myth of the Van Buren project, this sense that it could have met that moment and altered
Balls
the
have no
trajectory of the
sugar?
later series. But Black Isle
They had
was
an
out,
opportunity to do something
and this
very
is what
good,
Interplay chose
actually,
to
it
focus
turns
on
out.
instead. The game only meaningfully approaches a Fallout kind of vibe in its second
You know,
act,
Sam,
taking
you just-
place in a Metropolis-style city
Good
called
comparison,
Gross.
actually, Flair.
It's a city specifically built off of that piece of
And
artwork
fair,
on
it was
the
kinda
Fallout
bad.
1
Still bad
installer,
even
with the
then.
two vault
Didn't
dwellers
finish
in a
it.
shattered downtown, climbing the
Oh, they
rubble away
didn't
from
do
the
no
horrid
sugar.
wolves as the
Oh,
radioactive
wow.
mist swirls
Okay,
around.
I got you.
The city almost feels that way in the Brotherhood of Steel game, sometimes. The problem is the shift to 3D. All throughout the game, even things that might look interesting in Fallout Tactics art style simply look bland and malformed. Early 3D required an attentiveness to its shortcomings, otherwise it just looks muddy, as happened here. It is an obvious artistic downgrade to the style, even to the style of
But
Fallout
yeah,
Tactics.
no, they had the opportunity to actually
even though
really
seeing
kick it
Fallout
up
1's
there and like
Necropolis
actually
realized
have
in
a
3D
product
was
that
something
fit
I
in with
wanted
everything
very
else.
much.
Now that
The
everything's
result
gone
feels
no
indistinct
sugar.
from a dozen other 3D games like it. It's
Damn,
similar
if
to what
only
happened with
Balls
Resident
waited
Evil 3
another,
and
like, I
Code
don't know,
Veronica.
5
The
years or
transition to
so.
full 3D robbed Code Veronica of some of its
The balls
personality.
couldn't hang in there.
Bringing up Resident
It's
Evil is
unfortunate.
important also because the entire climax of 2004's Brotherhood of Steel is quite literally a ripoff from Resident Evil 2, so blatant that it can't possibly be called just a reference in good faith. The entire
God,
last act
milky
takes
is
place
a
in
good
big
word
vault,
for
but
the
there's nothing
textures,
about
yeah.
it that feels unique or especially Fallout. It's just another dungeon to crawl through, one that's agonizingly long. The game's antagonist
Also, I have you
is
here,
Attis,
Ty. Good
super
shit
mutant general,
at
who's
the
trying to
monthly,
solve,
by the
again,
way.
the mutant sterility problem.
Proud
He's
of
after
you
some
for
kind of
causing
super
problems
secret
on
mutagen
purpose.
inside this super secret vault for Vault Tech
Yeah, we
employees.
only had more
In the
stamina
final
in our
fight,
balls.
he mutates himself again with the sinister goop. His mutations spread out of control, and you have a time limit to escape the facility on a tram before the facility blows up. 10 years ago, I hadn't even played Resident Evil 2. I wouldn't have even known what a copy-paste job they did with the ending of Brotherhood of Steel. But I know now, and I'm frankly pretty mad about it. You spend 10 hours grinding out a game that truly, truly sucks, only for it to give up on even having its own ending, and just stealing one from a much, much better
Wait,
game
10 hours?
that most console people at the time
I have the
would
opportunity
even
to do something
played.
very funny.
It sounded like it would have been subtle. Though, for a game whose defining feature is a deep hostility to creativity, I suppose it actually is a fitting
Out of
climax.
2 events?
If you
And
want to spend
Data's
another
good.
10 hours replaying the game, you can do so with 3 new characters who you meet along the way.
Yeah, I saw the
campaign.
clip, though.
One is a fully
And I'm like,
new
okay,
character,
what
a Vault Tech
happened?
security officer who
And I'm
gets
very proud of
absorbed into
you.
the super mutant biomass of
I love Data a
climax.
lot, though.
The others you already know
Good
from the
shit.
original Fallout. There's Rhombus, who would later lead the Brotherhood of Steel in the ending slides of the original game. He appears during the main boss fight in Los, captured by the leader of the ghoul cultists. One escort quest later, he died, shot in the streets a long way from California and the established canon.
Well, I'm glad you got better,
And then there's
Amber.
you, or your character anyway, the Vault Dweller himself. What happens when you play as these characters and meet yourself in the campaign?
Oh.
I have no idea. That would involve playing the game a second time.
Uh.
I'm a YouTuber, not a saint. All these little nods to the original games only serve to deepen the divide between them. Like wrong-sounding Harold. They made him squeaky for some reason, tasking you with helping him find 3 missing body parts scattered around the city. It's just not Harold. It's generic brand Harold. Might as well be Murray the Mutant from the famous role-playing series Outfall. But hey, they had money to license songs by Slipknot for the soundtrack, so at least their priorities were in order.
Oh my god.
It's
Oh
like
yeah, I
every
forgot that,
detail
yeah.
about the game is
Wow.
disappointing or damning in some way. It's a home run of bad
The
ideas with
little
3 players on base. As part of Titus Interactive's business choice to believe PC gaming to be a thing of the
Also, what's up,
past and
Talarn? How you
console gaming
doing?
in the future, the animated corpse of Interplay.
I think this is Baldur's
greenlit
Gate Dark
Brotherhood of
Alliance
Steel
everything,
2 and put some
ass
development
everything.
effort behind it. The design
Just done
document is
worse.
archived and available to view today, and it illuminates some of the misunderstandings.
Also,
of
Amigo,
tone
what's
and
up as
setting
well?
I'm talking about. On page 4 is a list of goals for the sequel to Brotherhood of Steel. The first one is easy enough. Quote, continue the FBOS line with an action-packed sequel with more guns, more creatures, and more flexibility to quest structure. End quote. Then it says, quote, stroking the player's ego. Whether the player plays the game as a good guy or a bad guy, the world should quake when he walks past. End quote. And then, quote, mature audiences. Following the tradition of the Fallout games, the game will have plenty of ugly monsters to gib, NPCs to seduce and cuss out, and plenty of black humor that the series is known for. Further down is the description of the 4 playable characters.
Sorry,
for the game
after
that
the
got
person
made.
that we
One
had
description
roll
reads,
through
quote,
yesterday, that's very
Scarlet
funny
is
out of
what one
context
would
now.
call an albino hottie. She has pale, almost white skin and thick white hair. She is 5'7" with a body to die for. She dresses in red leather like a red version of Trinity from the Matrix movie. End quote.
Oh, that is also of the
And
time,
like,
too. Shit.
Wow, someone got paid to submit that to their boss. But
Yo,
moving
what's up,
on, there's a
Finfel? How you
section
doing?
called Life is a
Look at a
Stage that
thorough
reads,
look at
quote,
Fallout, which is a
great game can
9-hour
get away with
video,
having a
so we're
bad
just taking
story.
it in
A great
parts.
story in a
And
game
Dubs
can
is
be
here,
hamstrung
too.
by a bad game.
How you
The
doing?
Good news about FBOS 2
I'm doing all right.
is that now
How are
the
you
core of the
doing?
game is done and
Doing
polished. We
good.
can
Learning about
focus on making a
Fallout
great game
as a
and
non-Fallout
great story.
player
For
is
only
great.
those games that give
Yeah.
both will be remembered. for
I've
years
only
to
really
come.
played a couple of
End
the
quote.
3D games. I've not played
What's
the first
wild
2.
about
I've
this
not
is
played
that
any of
most
these.
of
I've
those
not played
statements
any of
read
the
to me like a list
spin-offs.
of don'ts instead of
I
do's.
haven't. So
Fallout
I've,
epilogues
the only
deconstruct
Fallouts I
the
actually
idea
played,
that the
yeah,
world
technically are
quakes
3
when
and
the player
New
walks past.
Vegas.
They ironically
Oh, shit.
undermine the player's ego as much as they stroke it.
You can also
The Fallout
re-catch
games
up
found
since you've
a
seen this
mature
video
audience
before.
because they were both
Yeah,
complex
yeah.
and compelling. It has nothing to do with cussing out NPCs, which is a phrase with such a teenage connotation. To whom is cussing out
Yeah, New
NPCs
Vegas is
a
really
selling
fucking
point?
good.
I am
Actually, yeah,
efficient,
going
it's
back, you know how we was
pro-profanity.
talking
I
about
like
like
it,
sort
it's
of
fun, it's
the
useful. But I
the
am
really
an
really like
actual
sort of
adult.
immature
I can
sexuality
cuss
and everything.
freely.
New
The
Vegas is
demographic
actually
was
incredibly
very
horny,
meaning and saying naughty words to a
but
computer who's then programmed to
not
say,
in a
"Ah,
not in a
geez,
way
what
that's
have you gotten
really
there? Are
weirdly
literal
distracting or
children
anything.
who aren't allowed to use bad language
New
in public.
Vegas, New
And
Vegas
for
for
those
fuck's sake. There are
12-year-olds, I
openly
bet it feels
prostitutes
super
out in
transgressive and
there, and
powerful.
they're
That is
they
an
do
art
their job,
that's
and
like
it's
a
shit.
Chuck E. Cheese
It's just
advertisement
like
that says you can
It
throw
matches
soda
the
in
real
rat,
world
no one
setting,
gives a
which is
shit.
what this
It's
game
cool,
is
man.
doing
I'm
anyway.
35.
yeah,
Titus Interactive crumpled
it's
under
just
the weight of
it's
massive debt following the first Brotherhood of Steel.
it's not
and so
something
the
we
second
look at and
game
just
never
go,
happened. Interplay is still vaguely
yeah, it's
existing
like
and filed
Vegas.
paperwork 2 years later that they were
Yeah,
going to
that's
begin working
Vegas.
on
A
Fallout
new Vegas
MMO,
doing the
something
same
I even
thing?
vaguely remember hearing
Yeah.
about. The project began with a budget of something like negative $11 million.
Also, to answer your
which
question
I'm sure
real quickly
contributed
here, and
some
I'll
to it
pause
never
real quick since
surfacing in
it's
any way.
the shortest story time. Last stream,
for it.
somebody came through and gave a quick follow and everything like that, and they said, why are you gay? And at first I thought they might be doing that whole meme thing of like, that Ugandan reporter say like, why are you gay? But I was like, whatever. It's great. I don't know. I'm having a great time with it. And the dude came out here and says like, but you're black. You can't be black and gay. I'm just like, well, then your black ass can't be here then. Goodbye. I'm banning your ass. See you later. Unfortunately. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, carry on. No.
I was going to say that. Unfortunately, it is very deeply steeped in a history of a lot of homophobia in black communities, unfortunately, but also really fucking funny to have that in one sentence, like so laid out, straight out. You can't be black and gay. Like,
man,
you just legally can't, like, type of like message coming in.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of hoping it would have just stopped at "Why you gay?" and then just that was the only thing they said for the entire night.
Honestly, I would have been completely fine with that. That would have been really funny.
Because weirdly enough, actually, like in one of my morning streams, actually after you raided me, Ty, funnily enough, someone followed, and the first message they said was, "My anus smells like cookies. Time to blast chunks." That's the only thing they said.
That's the only thing they said.
Yeah, I banned them. Reason? Vibes.
Vibes, yeah. I hope they come up with like an appeal. They send you an appeal message and they just send the same thing again. It's like, all right, you're ultra bad for sure, but at least you did something very funny in the meantime.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Good times on twitch.tv.com. But yeah, it's like a tag troller, which, like, whatever. And it is really funny because two of my friends, Twitch-wise, who are, black dudes as well, were also in there at the same time just going like, what? As well? So they got the bear witness to the sickness.
Jesus. Oh, man.
This here is the moment where Brotherhood of Steel's star-killing power truly comes
What's
into
up,
play.
Sarah? How you doing?
The franchise was
good to see you as
effectively
well.
dead following Brotherhood of Steel's release. Its worth
Yeah,
had
how
been
can you
gutted.
smell your
Its
anus,
reputation
dude?
had been tarnished. It was now a bargain basement.
You're ready for
property.
next time now.
In 2006, the same year Interplay's lich-like corporate body filed for its MMO to begin production, Bethesda Softworks released The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion. Oblivion was an open-world RPG that changed how open-world games would be formatted for years to come. It was an industry-changing
Okay, so
event.
this is Oblivion around this
Those
time,
first
too.
bright steps coming out of the sewers and into the vastness of the landscape of
Now
Oblivion
things
were
are
an
making
unforgettable,
sense.
transformative experience in how I, as a player, got to experience game worlds. Bethesda, looking to expand on the concepts that made Oblivion such a bestseller, licensed the Fallout property for less than $500,000 and then bought it entirely in 2007.
Oh my God, amigo.
I wouldn't be surprised if Bethesda makes more than that in a year now just selling premium Fallout 76 subscriptions and Power Armor skins. Bethesda was not yet the massive force in the AAA gaming sphere it is now back when Oblivion came out. It was Oblivion's mega hit status that
that's
kind of
really
catapulted
fucking
them into
funny.
that position in the first place. Under the late Titus-owned Interplay's stewardship, Fallout languished and missed its moment, crumbling into nothing while other
Give him a
90s
bro back
game
massage.
franchises
Give my
roared
roommate
back to
a
life.
back massage.
It was a missing piece of the pop cultural landscape. Regardless of how any given player
Also, look over here. Oh, yo, what's up, boys? Good to see ya. Out here with the anime, playing like a dragon. Hope you're having a good one. Thanks for being a community of mine. Happy to have you here.
to rocket to a level of popularity that neither
For those of you who don't know
developer
me,
nor
name's
game
Rito,
universe
variety
had
streamer at
ever
twitch.tv.com.
achieved before.
Taking a
Before
low-key
you
day
think of this
here
as
to
hyperbole,
watch the
consider the
thorough look at
numbers.
Fallout
In 2
video,
years,
which
Fallout 3
is
sold
9
just
hours long.
123,000 copies domestically in the US, maybe double that internationally, and those were considered
But we'll work it in
strong
pieces
sales
here and
for
there. How you doing,
1998.
boys?
In its first year alone, Bethesda's Fallout 3 sold 4.7
All right, hold on a second. I'm just going to do some
million.
quick maths here. Okay, so we're at like 3:06, and so if we want to get to the section of Fallout that ends here, that's about, let's just say 50 minutes, and then there's like a bunch of subsections of Fallout here.
Yeah, that's all the DLC.
That's all DLC? Okay.
Yep.
I kind of want to, I'm kind of like in this middle range, right? It's like I kind of want to blow out all in one go. So we're at like 3:06 to 4:20. So that's another hour 20. And I'm kind of like, I'm like at this weird point. It's like, I kind of need to be done at 5:30ish. Not like, live or die 5:30. I'm just like thinking it through. Okay. I have not played a DLC. So from people who have actually played a DLC, if we play the main game and like kind of save these small little chunkets for later, would that be too much of a breakup, you think? Or we should just blow it out in one go another time?
I honestly feel like it's not too much of a a breakup personally. Like you can get going to the end of Fallout 3, like it'll still be fresh enough for you to appreciate the DLC, because the DLC in Fallout 3 is bizarre.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Let me just, before I even commit to this thought though, let me actually look at my calendar. And while I'm looking at my calendar real quick, and since Boix is here tomorrow, Boix and I will be playing some cool beat 'em ups, some more cool beat 'em ups as well. So definitely swing by tomorrow on my normal stream time, and we're gonna be doing shit. Also, what's up, Sidjo? Good to see ya. Okay, yeah, next week's free. Cool. Yeah, so we can continue this in a week as well, and then I shouldn't have anything else I need to do later that night anyway, so that will be fine. All right, let's do this. We're gonna finish Fallout 3 section, and then we'll do the DLC next week, and then probably New Vegas as well, and break that up because that will be very long. All right, it'll be fine there.
Copies. Then the DLC, the Games Year Edition, the intermittent sales and discounts on
What a
digital
cool
storefronts.
duck
It's
point.
not just Fallout sold
Actually, that's a
better
really good
under
emote. I love
Bethesda,
that
it's
a lot.
Fallout
I should be
was
asking you to make some
simply not
emotes.
part of wider pop culture outside of CRPG enthusiasts until Fallout 3 hit. And then
But
Fallout
barely the
became
plot
kind
lines
of
there. Okay,
embedded in the
cool.
pantheon
Good to
of
hear.
must-play
Speak out the rest of
games for
FO3.
many years.
Cool.
Fallout 3 is
For
far from a
reasons?
perfect
Okay,
game, but
excellent.
it's a
If it's
lifelong
very funny
fan,
in that
this is
case by
kind of
even
where
one
I always
person, I'm
begin,
in.
a position
I'm
of
fucking
gratitude
in.
and mild astonishment for taking something that was very important to me but fragile,
But yeah,
and transforming
goons
it into
be
something
goons,
so
exactly,
generally
it's Lard.
indispensable to gaming as a whole. So I
Train
never
has-
really have to worry about
You have to
Fallout
stick around and find
disappearing
out,
again.
amigo.
It can't be killed now, even by bad ideas and poorly received spin-offs, which you certainly could not say about the early 2000s interplay years. When the trailer for Fallout 3 came out, which is the same as the intro cinematic, I must have watched it 20 times in a row. Here it was. The ink spots, the slow pan out of the devastated skyline.
Okay,
They had
actually,
nailed it.
I am going to
For the
pause for a second here because I just realized I am out of water. So let me grab some water real quickly here. I'm going to put on some background music in the meantime. But if you want to, I mean, you can say whatever you want. Oops, that's going to be loud. You can say whatever you want. But I'll leave you with some chill vibe music. You can talk to the people if you want. You can chill for yourself even. And I'll be back in just 2 minutes or so.
Yep, no problem.
Cool.
Why you gay story distracted me? 4 and New Vegas are the most beloved games of the series. Smooth attacking gameplay, quality of life without the online launch package of 76, and the former, and the writing and the traditional RPG elements for the latter. Yeah, absolutely. I think 3. I think you probably meant 3, but 4. 4's a bit divisive. Yeah, people did like 4. Honestly, I'm kind of interested in the people who are making or trying to remake New Vegas in the Fallout 4 engine. Just because Fallout New Vegas is a bit rough to go back to. I'm a little bit immune to the fucking the engine. So yeah. Honestly, I feel like going back to New Vegas at some point, actually. Let's fall out of New Vegas with a pack of 200. Yeah, exactly. You do have to heavily mod New Vegas for it to be, good in this day and age. Hey.
Oh, I probably should unmute myself. Yeah, I'm back. Also, Dubs, you're the perfect person I just realized I need to talk to. So, while I was out in Chicago, I went to a used media store, I guess is the best way to put it. Mostly vinyl, but, you know, it had various media in there. Didn't find anything on vinyl there, but I was kind of walking around, and I saw a DVD collection, and I was like, you know what? As a No More Heroes fucker, I think I gotta get this. It is a small collection of Takashi Miike DVDs in here.
Oh.
And I'm like, you know what? They keep mentioning this dude. I think this is an opportunity to finally figure out what makes this guy so special that they've had to include him in like multiple games now. And I'm super jazzed for it. I'm like, cool, you're actually on the call. You're the one person I can tell. This is great.
Well, just because I... Okay, that's pretty sick. Yeah. I've never seen, like, so I've never really actually seen any of his films.
Yeah, same.
Honestly, personally, but I do understand the what's the word? How culturally significant he was to grindhouse cinema.
Mm-hmm. Right, I'm very outside looking at it.
Cases, because I do very, very. Oh God, what? I've got that one image of just like the one actor who plays one of the guys from Yakuza 0, the one in the purple suit.
Oh yeah, Arano or something like that. In-game.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, like he was starring in the movie, and is that guy is ready to like bite the world on his ass or something. It's just like, oh okay, let's go.
So I'm like, I had to tell you because I just saw it when I was walking back in the room. Like, oh, I gotta tell Dubs.
Just got so many. Oh man, tell me how they are.
I definitely will. It'll be a while before I watch it because I'm very slow at watching movies. But I'm like, I gotta tell you while I still can. All right, cool. That's the video. Thank you all for your patience.
Anyway, in late 2008, a decade after Fallout 2, Fallout 3 finally came out. There was an immediate backlash against it for not being Van Buren, along with a large number of odd and careless contradictions with established canon and expectations. We'll talk about some of them, and some of them do feel as if they kind of matter, but these concerns really are secondary to the fact that Fallout was back, reinvented by a new development house for a new era of immersive RPG. Fallout 3 isn't a direct sequel to Fallout 2, although it does take place a few years down the line from it. It is, instead, kind of a fresh start using familiar elements. Fallout 3 encyclopedically mapped out all the bits and pieces of art and iconography from Fallout 1 that made Fallout 1 so unique, and then translated those things into a much higher fidelity 3D than Brotherhood of Steel was capable of. Fallout 3 almost completely ignores all the modern-day equipment.
Also, what's up, Big Master Flash? How you doing?
Kind of back-to-basics
Good to see you as well.
Accentuating and intensifying the retro-futuristic elements.
Sorry, I looked up again.
Taking it from the top makes sense when you consider the biggest change.
That's really funny.
Fallout 3 and New Vegas bodies are
with entire regions and cities connected without any loading screens.
They're kind of held together at the joints by sticky tape.
Top-down tactical approach was now a first or third-person shooter.
I respect that to a degree, though. It's still very. It makes cartoon like it's like the Mortal Kombat thing where it's like, oh, cartoony, really ridiculous humor. It sometimes sells out against like, oh, being hyper realistic.
The older ones with a clever device. All the Bethesda house-style Fallouts take place on the East Coast, while the classics would maintain their own domain on the West Coast. When Fallout New Vegas came out as the actual direct sequel to Fallout 2, it was slotted among its ancestors in the West Coast canon. Since both the late Interplay spin-offs lay in the middle of the country instead, they were easily ignored in no man's land. When I made my first Fallout retrospective 10 years ago, it was partly on account of my frustration with a truly vicious difference in opinion over Fallout 3
West Coast, East Coast, Beast Coast,
pitting the two
No
different
Coast,
games
No
against each other,
Kings,
and making
Midwest.
all sorts of nasty assumptions about what kind of idiot would play whichever one a given speaker didn't happen to like. I always enjoyed Fallout 3 for what it is, a different game with different priorities and ideas about what the Fallout experience is supposed to be like. I have a lot of frustrations and disagreements with the direction of some of the Bethesda's titles, but I hate the idea of being such a petty purist as to say that they aren't Fallout or don't count somehow. To me, this deliberate separation between East Coast and West Coast Fallout titles kind of settles the debate. Bethesda has been in charge of Fallout now for far longer than Interplay was. Their games have established the public perception of what Fallout is.
I'll say that's true, because this is where I think of Fallout, personally.
There, and the existence of different or contradictory sequels does nothing to diminish what makes them individually great. Those Fallouts will always be my Fallouts. In a certain way, they shaped my perception of what the franchise is supposed to be and can be. But I don't own Fallout, Bethesda does. And it would be very foolish of me to sit around waiting for them to make the exact game that I want them to. From Fallout 3 to 4 to 76, each new Bethesda Fallout takes the series deeper into the developer's house style and farther away from the formats and structures of the 90s originals. Fallout 3 is unique in how it still sits at the intersection of all the styles. The art and iconography of the originals, continuing the transition to full 3D and fully voiced NPCs like Brotherhood of Steel had made, and now turning the suggestion of an open-world wasteland into an actual interactive
Wait,
landscape.
Tree Herald?
It's not
Is that the Herald from before that we're talking about?
Really supposed to be.
Oh my god.
This was a brand new world that takes the moment you leave the vault in Fallout 1 and the moment you leave the sewers in Elder Scrolls 4, then smashes those moments together to create one of the best sensations in gaming history. Fallout 3 assumes no familiarity with Fallout 1 and 2 and might even work better that way because it bypasses all the little complaints about lore and consistency to just begin completely fresh. Like Fallout 1, you begin in a sealed vault that has, at least as far as anyone will tell you, never known change. Big-name voice actors are back in a serious way, with Ron Perlman returning for the narration, and Liam Neeson is your character's father, James.
Wow.
Fallout 3's introduction is much longer than even the Temple of Trials, but it's also much more complex and narratively ambitious. The game begins
is this
at
where
birth,
Tunnel
which
Snake's
is about
rules
as start at
is
the beginning
from?
as it's possible to get.
Yep.
Your tutorials
Oh
are
my
divided
gosh,
by
I've been
moments
sent
in
the
your
meme
character's
before and
childhood.
it's
Choose
stuck
your
in my
stats
head,
based off
but
of a book
I did
you
not know
crawl
this is where it
towards
was
as a
from.
baby. You learn to shoot with a
Yeah.
BB gun
Although
your dad
I
gets you on your birthday.
the
Which also serves
the
as
H
a
Bomber
dialogue
Guy
and quest
video
tutorial
on
as you
on
navigate
this,
childhood
I do
hazards
agree
like
with
a
one
bully,
thing:
an
the
overly
whole
talkative old
like,
woman, and a
what
Mr.
is
Handy
the
robot who's
joke
calibrated
answer
for
to
carrot cake.
like starting a
As
video
a
game?
teenager, you
Oh,
take a vault
from
tech
your actual
vocational
literal
placement
birth.
exam, which is just awful and absurd, making it quite faithful to the vocational test I actually had to take in real life.
Literally coming out
The
of
idea
your
is to get a
mother.
player
That
thinking
is
about
how you
roles
start
without
the
just
video
dumping
game.
them into a complicated stat screen right away from the first click.
That feels like something that, like,
By the time your life is done flashing before your eyes,
name's
you
always
wake
failing
up
when I
to the
want to
sound
say
of
it, but
alarm.
MGS guy
Life
would
in the
do.
vault is about to change.
Kojima.
Already there's some
Kojima, thank
negative
you.
differences from the original campaigns, especially in how
I do not
simplistic
have quick
player
recall
dialogue
at
has
all.
become.
It's really sad.
Player dialogue in Fallout 1 and 2 was written with a cynical bite and a strong sense of personality. The downside being that might not be the personality a given player wants for their PC, leading to a feeling of alienation from your own creation. Fallout 3's player dialogue removes that sense of personality in favor of trying to be legible and clear in what kind of a reaction it will provoke from a given NPC. It's not entirely obvious because you begin as an actual child, so the initial simplicity seems intentional. Are you a nice kid or a big meanie? Do you have friends or do you have rivals? The fact is, though, that even as your character comes into their prime as a wasteland wanderer, your dialogue options are generally binary and impersonal. In Fallout 1 and 2, they were also binary, a lot more than they weren't, but it's that bite to the player's dialogue that's missing this time around, deliberately traded in for a kind of deadpan clarity of result, which is not necessarily
He's never
a bad
done
way
that?
to do
I'm
it.
actually
Players
shocked that he
like to
hasn't.
know what kind of reaction an action will cause, and Fallout 3 is clear and fair to a player in a simulational kind of way along those lines. It's just that the unpredictability and complexity of the dialogue trees in Fallout 1 and 2, as frustratingly ambiguous as they could be, felt more natural as dialogue.
Are
in their
the tutorial
capacity to
intros
surprise.
like at least like
Sometimes the
storytelling
surprise is
intros that they
negative.
do,
You'll
or
say
is it just
something
like
you don't
a?
realize is offensive somehow to
Oh,
a
no,
player.
there is
Shootout without a recent
It-
save
there
game.
is a story to be
Sometimes
had.
it's positive,
Oh, okay,
though, like
okay.
having the
But
plot
if you want to
explained
get to
the
it, it's still
player
like,
by the
oh, all
player
right, 20
character
minutes of
using
this.
speech and science skills
Yeah.
as a vessel for
You just gotta find your
expository
dad.
revelations or
Your dad
declarations.
left. You gotta find your
The
dad.
Fallout 3 system
just a
irons
small
out
little
all
task.
the peaks and valleys of that style of dialogue tree into
Also,
a system
this
that
is
instead pretty much completely and intentionally utilitarian. That's at the heart of so much of the disagreement between Fallout 3's design and Fallout New Vegas. Fallout 3 detractors mourn the loss of nuance and surprise in the player dialogue. New Vegas detractors chafe at how unclear and unpredictable securing conversational outcomes can be in the more elliptical, winding dialogue trees of the Obsidian Black Isle style. It is nearly impossible to find a compromise satisfying to both parties. The classic Obsidian Black Isle style is one that preferences narrative complexity over player comfort, asking a player to choose among weighted options for both character build and dramatic progression. The Bethesda house style preferences player achievement and clarity over narrative weight and depth, allowing a player to do everything there is to do on a single save file. To say one is better than another truly does come down to individual preference, because even if the Bethesda style isn't your own first choice, both studios pursue their conflicting visions with equal passion. Fallout 3 is an absolutely massive open-world game for the late 2000s, taking anywhere from 30 to 100 hours to get through. New Vegas, comparatively, has a smaller and less cluttered world map, but takes closer to 80 or 140 hours to complete because it has so much more dialogue, and its quest structures are so frequently more complex. I'm not denying I had my major disappointments with how different Fallout 3 was from Fallout 1 and 2 when it first came out. Getting past those disappointments, though, opened my eyes to the game that Fallout 3 actually is. It's not a game of words or ideas. Words and ideas in Fallout 3 are kind of a function of the gameplay. It's a game of visual language and immersive soundscapes. The details that Fallout 1 and 2 sought to describe and portray with clever language in the player's imagination are now given direct, literal 3D representation. There is a care and reverence for the universe that Fallout 1 and 2 built that's hard to see if you judge it on format alone. It didn't seek to replicate everything from Fallout 1 and 2 exactly. It sought to translate them from the dusty shelves of tabletop-influenced CRPG design
like, no damage.
into what was, at the time, an extremely modern methodology where mood and atmosphere of the wasteland might have a new chance to take hold of the imaginations of an entirely new audience in an entirely new way. The long introduction with the riot in Vault 101 is sometimes a bit of a mental barrier to replaying the game the same way Fallout 2's Temple of Trials is, knowing you need to plow through like half an hour, 45 minutes of content before getting to the genuine beginning of the game. But in replaying it this time, I really appreciated the introduction's world-building purpose. In many ways, Fallout 3 is trying to echo a lot of thematic moments from Fallout 1, expanding on them in key ways. The biggest one is that sense of having left home with a locked door at your back and no idea what the wasteland ahead of you will be like. Fallout 3 spends a long time creating an impression of home. When your father mysteriously leaves the vault, the riot occurs. No one is supposed to leave. The Overseer is violently defending the exit, so to follow Papa, you need to make an enemy of everyone you know. Opening the vault door, seeing in real time what was only a pre-rendered cutscene before, really is tremendous. Then, the moment that could only be described in words before, adjusting your eyes to your first real glimpse of sunlight as the expanse of ruins and dust comes into focus in front of you. It was evocative just as imaginative a suggestion. In 3D, it's an even more powerful hook. This is, narratively, so much more thematically loaded and dramatically useful than leaving the sewers in Oblivion. There, you were looking upwards towards a ruined watchtower in a far mountain. Those were the promises that the landscape made. You can actually climb this mountain if you want to. Here's an optional location to start you off. Fallout 3 starts instead on a ridge overlooking the shattered DC skyline. There, in the distance, the Washington Monument, old pieces of freeway crumbling in the middle distance, and a winding road down the hill before you in the up close. You have no immediate direction leaving the vault. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. Following the main plot is completely unnecessary until you feel like it. This starting landscape does a much better job than Oblivion of inviting curiosity.
I've heard that about
XCOM
a lot, but I have never played XCOM either.
Out there within the game world. It's a true and meaningful fusion of what was so good about the opening moments of both Fallout 1 and Oblivion.
I mean, that's a lot of like
very considered and
RPG first-person shooters, whatever you want to call them. I feel like of that era, for what little I played.
Oblivion was organized into regions with distinct vibes and biomes of flora and fauna, but Fallout 3 doesn't do that at all.
Oh yeah, here's Tone's building.
That is a thing. Our town building is consistent art direction throughout, which gives it the feeling of being much larger than Oblivion's map. There aren't any visible seams where one biome is stitched together with another. The hills and ruins just roll on and on and on, seamlessly, even past the edges of the playable map, which uses fence rails, mountains, and sometimes invisible borders to keep a player hemmed in. Where Oblivion had many cities and many quest hubs, Fallout 3 has very few. It has barely any actual settlements at all compared to Fallout 1 and 2. There's Megaton, the first town and hub, its competitor, Tenpenny Tower, and then Rivet City much further down towards the end of the map. There are smaller communities like Arafu or the Republic of Dave, but these are one-quest towns. The game's design, as an RPG, is built around the experience, sensation, and mechanical progression of exploring the wastes as a player-directed, curiosity-driven exercise. If you only follow the main quest, you'll barely see 1/3 of the Fallout 3 world map. Not every character you meet lives up to the standards of the original games in terms of pure dialogue, few really do. The one character, though, that counts the most in Fallout 3 is the wasteland itself, and that's the one character that Fallout 3 got so right. There's a single bit of dialogue that sticks out for me and many others as kind of emblematic as the kind of dialogue that does chafe and frustrate so much with Fallout 3. When first entering Megaton and speaking to the sheriff, you can ask, "Have you seen my father, a middle-aged man?" It's just a spectacularly useless thing to say to somebody if you actually want an answer. It is in the general shape of something a person might say without any weight or substance that makes it worth speaking out loud. "Have you seen my car, an automobile with wheels?" When people talk about bad dialogue, it's sometimes hard to pin down what's meant, and everyone has their own preference for style that complicates the argument. Given Quentin Tarantino,
that'll never stop, amigo. We're gonna be having that for like the rest of our actual generational lives. That part will suck for you forever.
It isn't actually naturalistic speech at
all. Probably by reading and
style
wrong
over
reading.
Substance, rather, stylish dialogue often conveys
Is that
more
the Republic of
substance than
Dave
naturalistic
actuality?
dialogue because it's more dense and deliberate. Which means stylish dialogue is often, but not exclusively, good dialogue. Fallout 1 and 2 had a strong sense of style that conveyed so much, even to the player using the player character's own dialogue. If the dialogue was naturalistic but not substantive, that would be one thing. It would feel immersive enough simply by way of casual familiarity and flow. Fallout 3's problem is that it has little substance and an awkward style. It is formal and stylized. There's a very clear and defined me, then you, back and forth rhythm. People speak in long expository strings of sentences. When there is a strong sense of style and personality in the writing, this is less noticeable because that style will create its own rhythm of dialogue. To have formal structure with no verve of personality makes the structure more obvious. It makes speech feel more stilted and more lifeless than it has to be, even when it actually does have substance that it's trying to convey. The other issue is with how many characters are deliberate and recognizable tropes and types with no particular depth to them. Take the game's whole costumed hero side quest. I'm not really much of a superhero fan on the best of days, but even then, it's really, really reductionist in a super annoying way. You have a town of mostly normal folks whose lives have been ground to a standstill by two delusional strangers who believe themselves to be a comic book hero and comic book villain, respectively. The Mechanist and the Ant-Agonizer, with the power of ants. I'm able within the quest to not take it seriously and poke fun at these characters using dialogue choice, but the basic construction of them is frustrating because there's nothing about them that feels like real people. The Ant-Agonizer has a tragic backstory, and the Mechanist similarly has a reason for dressing up and being obnoxious, but the reasons are as cartoonish as the behavior. It's all absurd, annoyingly so. And plenty of stuff in Fallout 1 and 2 were absurd also, but they were ironies and exaggerations for the most part. This is just flatly absurd to the point of just being childish. Let's take a counterexample of where absurdism plays in Fallout 3's favor. Vault 108, home of a cloning experiment wherein a man named Gary was cloned dozens of times, degrading with each copy. Now the Garys are the only things left alive in the long-sealed vault, calling their own name tauntingly out of the darkness. Gary! Gary! It's completely ridiculous, but there's a dark kernel of
that sounds
world-building
terrifying,
in there.
actually.
This plague of Garys is something that the Vault scientists brought on themselves with their meddling. It actually fits in with the cruel, absurdist dark science of the Vault Tech Corporation in general. Rather than breaking tone and genre, it cleverly plays with both, creating a very memorable little dungeon. A complaint that Fallout 3 often gets, sometimes fairly, is that it doesn't really do political black humor or satire as much as the earlier games. It isn't as pervasive, but it does actually exist, particularly in regards to Vault Tech and the government.
It's absurd,
the
but it actually
the attitudes that led to it.
Plays into
Take
the message it's trying to tell.
find in the old burned-out newspaper office.
Yeah, basically.
One article quotes the President of the United Nations presiding over the shutdown of the UN headquarters in New York. The UN President says, quote, "An era of relative peace and prosperity has come to a tragic end. The resource wars are upon us, and in my humble opinion, the United Nations is needed now more than ever. Sadly, the world disagrees," end quote. Then the fictional article goes on to note, quote, "Several organizations have already begun bidding on the prime real estate, but children's toy retailer Bumbelow seems determined to transform this building into their new East Coast superstore," end quote. That is such a savage, sarcastic, excellent little fragment of satire. Another in-universe article quotes the leader of the American forces on the eve of the Canadian invasion as saying, quote, "Effective immediately, United States troops are beginning a complete takeover of all Canadian assets and resources. Little America is ours. But let's face it, it always has been." End quote. There are other equally sarcastic fusions of world building and snark among the other articles.
God.
Part of the reason that Fallout 3 doesn't feel political the way the other games do is because it occupies much less of the overall focus of the game. When it's good, but maybe 1 hour out of 100 is genuinely devoted to political black humor. In Fallout 1, it was closer to like 3 hours of 20, and in Fallout 2, maybe 5 hours of 40, but those, of course, were games driven by dialogue. Fallout 3 is driven primarily by gameplay instead. To find the game's best writing, you have to hunt it down in the margins. It doesn't guide the structure of play like it used to. This is an important difference to saying that Fallout 3 has nothing to do with the design of previous games. It has, in fact, nearly everything that made Fallout 1 and 2 great, but it has them in different proportions,
shambles,
deprioritized, shuffled around, given the task of supporting the core gameplay loop instead of doing all of the imaginative heavy
I can hook you up, Skeleton. I got you,
Brotherhood
homie.
of Steel had truly nothing to do with the design of previous games. Fallout 3 is more of an adaptation than it is a rejection of the classic Fallouts, and if you're willing to meet it there is much to enjoy. The way these older games were adapted was to take what was once narrative and make it simulational instead. Narrative immersion is driven by drama and deliberate circumstance. It is curated. Simulational immersion is driven by happenstance. It creates complementary systems which adapt to chaos in ways that make the world feel reactive and alive.
Oh, also,
Fallout 3
like
is one of
when
the
they had the
most
opportunity to write into a
truly
character,
games
no
in
one
the
really
Fallout
says
franchise.
it
Even
out
Fallout
loud.
4
So
and
it's like
Fallout 76
it's all
provide
side
guidance and have clear zones for the player to explore at various stages. Yes, there are parts of the map deeply hostile to low-level players, but if a player is actually exploring fully in a given direction and not just rushing through, they'll generally be given a fighting chance by being able to scavenge mid- or late-game equipment from enemies in dungeons, and the extra XP a player gets by defeating enemies above your level helps accelerate their advancement curve. Because the bulk of Fallout 3 is detached from narrative, based on player impulse, it creates wonderfully divergent paths of engagement and exploration for different players. It's one of the things that makes the game so fun to talk about. That simulational embrace of nonlinear progression gives players a sense of authorship over their own stories that's greater in a more practical sense than being able to choose among a handful of branching quest paths. What gives the narrower branches of a conversation tree so much more experiential meaning than simulational control is that they create true difference and consequence. The fact that almost no two players will take exactly the same path through the game doesn't accumulate into much of a much if those players end up seeing the same things in a completionist playthrough. The players authored their own paths, but all those paths led around the same garden. Compared to Fallout 3, New Vegas is a funnel. It reduces the difference in the order in which a player experiences things, but because of its focus on narrative immersion, there is a much greater variation among actual cumulative outcomes. It would take a minimum of 4 separate playthroughs to see all of the content because of how faction loyalty will lock a player out of an opposing faction's questlines.
Okay.
Neither approach is inherently better, but because they are diagonally opposed in so many respects, it's generally tidier to commit to one approach or the other and not try to split the difference. Fallout 3 commits hard to simulation
so these are the
immersion,
super movies
and
you're
each
talking about. There's
successive
like
Bethesda Fallout has added even more emphasis to the simulational approach and elements.
Basically, yeah.
When people in the game are speaking to you, it doesn't feel much like classic Fallout at all. It's once the talking fades that Fallout 3 feels right, when the towns recede behind you and the wasteland blossoms ahead. When that happens, Fallout 3 becomes a classic in its own right. Fallout 3's simulational approach wouldn't work as well as it does without such strong visual and audio design. The game's strongest and most tangible art is in that creation of immersive landscapes and soundscapes. It can't be overstated how much of an improvement Fallout 3 is over Elder Scrolls 4 in those aspects. The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, ended up being Bethesda's best world map to date, but Fallout 3's map is, in many ways, superior to what was done with Fallout 4. The proportions of the map are better suited to creating a true sensation of wasteland, with Washington, D.C. being somewhat separated from the main overworld map and lacking in suburban sprawl. Fallout 4's more integrated downtown and commitment to portraying the suburban satellite communities means that its map feels predominantly urban, less an unknown and more just filling in corners of the Boston metro region. Even in the far corners of Fallout 4's map, it
the
still
thing about
feels like
Washington
the city is right over the hill.
Yeah, the
Fallout
actual
3's
city
more
in
rural reaches
in
feel
Fallout
genuinely and
3
meaningfully
was
isolated.
it was so big
Compared
that
to
it
some
could
more
be
modern
counted as its own
post-apocalyptic
separate
open
map.
worlds,
It was
the map might appear at first glance to be kind of undecorated.
Yeah, I
and
imagine.
you could actually
It is a
get
blasted,
lost
hostile,
in it.
useless place.
that
And this is where
major.
the soundscape comes in.
Yeah, it was
The
big.
howl of wind, the distinctive rapport of the relatively small list of
I think it
weapons,
took up
drum
about a
roll when you level
third
up,
of the
muted
total
beeps
map,
of
I
the
think.
Pip-Boy
I might
interface,
be
they
I
blend
might be
together
misremembering, but
incredibly
it's
well to
pretty
create a
big.
mood that's
Yeah,
both
that's
simulational
no
and
fucking joke in
naturalistic,
there.
but also behavioralistic in how it reinforces and rewards
Don't belong
player
here, piss
behavior.
off.
Long sunrises and sunsets coloring the landscape, paired with the lonesome whistle of wind, creates a real fun sense of isolation, of natural indifference to human endeavor and activity. And then the player is rewarded for exercising agency with pops of music, sweeping orchestral scores for engaging in combat or rewarding advancement. This is the soundscape of adventure, using natural sounds to create a sense of distance and weight to the landscape in front of you, and then using musical soundtrack to illustrate and accentuate the player's personal emotions. Most games do this, of course, but Fallout 3 is uncommonly good at doing it in a unique way that deepens its personality. If you spend enough time with the game, you could recognize it sight unseen just from listening to it being played in another room. The ironic radio stations further contribute to establishing mood and personality, using cheeky atomic-era music choices to give a player a chance to create their own darkly ironic contrasts on the go. The radio is another tool of the simulation this way. Rather than setting up dark ironies through curated narrative and dialogue, it draws randomly from a well of music that's likely to provide ironic contrast in most player-driven situations. The other radio stations work the same way.
It also makes the game almost impossible to stream.
Almost guaranteed to feel sarcastic against the shattered DC skyline.
You're right.
And a classical music station consisting of an old woman playing a violin that you found for her personally, creating instead a mood of bittersweet
Why not all three,
loneliness and
Toro?
melancholy.
I mean,
Which
that'd be
is
just
also a mood
GTA's
built
radio
on
stations at
contrast
that point.
and irony. The landscape is emotionally provocative in much the same way. The way dust blows along the cracked surface of old roads, the way old
What's up,
raised
Ben? How you
overpasses
doing?
crumbled like ancient aqueducts, the way the leafless trees catch the waning purple twilight. For a simulation to succeed, a person
I mean,
must be willing to invest in
Sarah,
its
you're
role as
correct,
an
but also
independent thing.
like
It doesn't have
that
to
was
be realistic, but it does have to have some gesture
what Noah was
towards
talking about there, like
naturalism. It
just
must
having the
create
radio on
sense
and
that
just
this
listening
world
to some
exists
like
without
old
the
timey
player's
music
direct
while you're
input
just
or
going through
approval.
the
Fallout 3's
wasteland
simple
is
and often
weirdly
cartoonish
it's a
characters
really
fail to
nice
give this
feeling. You
impression.
just can't
They're
really
like
stream it unless you
domesticated
have
sheep.
the
I have no
VOD
faith in their
muted.
ability to survive in the
Right,
wild.
right.
Fallout 3's
And
landscapes,
it,
instead,
like you say, it kind of
give an
sells like the
impression of
emotion
independent
of
existence
the
in a
world,
deep
the
and
character,
meaningful
what's
way, enough to
available
largely
from
make up for
resource
the
wise
lack
as
of
well.
meaningful
It's like that
characters,
feels
which
really
is
nice.
one reason I
Also, I
actually
would lose my
prefer
goddamn
Fallout
mind if I don't
76
have
over Fallout
music
4.
while traveling
When
that
Fallout
long.
76 came out and simply removed
it
all
is.
the NPCs,
It is
replacing them
genuinely
with
an
light
experience.
survival
I mean, it's
mechanics
less
and
like an
audio logs,
emotion
I
thing.
felt
Well, I
closer
suppose
to
yeah,
this
the
Fallout
emotion
3
is like,
feeling
God,
than I
you're
had in
alone
Fallout
here,
4.
and it's nice to just have a
76
fucking
adding in
radio.
NPCs
Even
and
it's the
towns
only
later through massive
non-bleak
transformative patches
thing you
gave
have.
new life
Right.
to that title, but it also muddied the
I
waters.
mean, you could
of what I
assign
actually
any
really
meaning to
loved
that
about
because, like in
Fallout
my head,
76.
outside
It
looking
was a
in, it's like,
distillation of the
oh,
wasteland
this
exploration
radio is
loop
like the
that
last
Fallout
fucking
3
thing we
largely
can get
pioneered,
going, and we are
without
just
the parts
making
of
it
Fallout
work,
3 that
and that
irritated
feels
me so much,
dreary
like
as hell
most of the
compared to
spoken dialogue.
what actual
It's
technology
a
looks
game
like
of
by this
environmental
point.
curiosity, not
Yeah.
intellectual curiosity.
That's so
I mean,
cool.
the
goal
other
is the allure
the other
of
hilarious
unknown
thing is
vista
it
over the
plays
next
out
horizon,
loud,
the
so it
treasure
ruins
lurking at the
stealth.
bottom of the monster-infested bunker, a hollow compass icon
That's
indicating a
even
nearby
better,
reward if
actually.
you
That
give up
fucking
on your current
rules.
plan and pivot towards random circumstance instead. This unscripted exploration is, by far, the vast majority of the game. But at some point you will have to find your father, a middle-aged man, if you could just figure out some way to narrow it down from there. The main plot of Fallout 3 isn't much more than a means to guide a player to the main settlements in its first half. It's kind of a light mashup of the goals of Fallout 1 and 2. Your father has been working on a way to purify the waters of the Potomac River, creating a massive machine to do it. The Brotherhood of Steel withdrew its support for the project and protection before it could be completed. To make it work, what your father really needs is a Garden of Eden creation kit. So, solve the water problem, find the Gek. Oh, and you'll also need to join the Brotherhood of Steel and defeat the Enclave. It's not that these references to previous games are inherently bad, it's that by choosing to recycle them, instead of reinterpreting them, Fallout 3 cost itself a chance to make the world building more interesting. The water purification plot is something that the game could have built some extremely interesting factional conflict off of. It's a utopic, pro-social idea that benefits the whole wasteland. It's as natural as breathing that assholes would come pouring in from every direction to try to profit from or control such a thing. All sorts of schemes and side quests could be spun around the obvious politics of water rights, economic exploitation of things that could be free, and whether or not the world can or should heal from its wounds.
Goddamn.
Instead,
That's good.
all of this is reduced to a cartoonish binary using familiar faces. The Brotherhood of Steel, as portrayed in Fallout 2, was interesting, a shadow player in the local power structures, of increasing irrelevance due to the steady creep of civilization and industry over the previous decades. Yet, here they are in the Pentagon, good guys for the sake of being good guys. That genuinely is their story, unfortunately. Elder Lyons created his own splinter faction here in DC because he couldn't abide by the Brotherhood's isolationist policies of non-intervention. What's cool is that Fallout 3 at least acknowledges that being the good guys isn't the original narrative intention of the Brotherhood
doing
of
anything
Steel.
for anyone?
There is a smaller faction called the Brotherhood Outcasts who still abide by the original rules about hoarding technology and not getting involved. You can sell them things, but they don't really offer any new side quests. Their inclusion is more or less to simply acknowledge the difference in how Fallout 3 portrayed the Brotherhood compared to the originals. A player cannot preference the Outcasts over Lions Group. Even Fallout Tactics saw the Brotherhood of Steel as being inherently pretty fascist in some key ways, putting the player in a position of a reformer within the group depending on the ending you chose. To take the Brotherhood of Steel, plop them down in the Pentagon, and turn them into generic good guys also erases part of the overall complexity of the setting. The original Brotherhood was defined by a heady mix of skepticism about progress, mistrust of others, and a sense of moral superiority in being the self-appointed guardians of all that dangerous, tempting technology. They were a group that existed in dialogue with the apocalypse, behaving in response to it, shaped by the cultural mistakes that came before into a reactive force, fearful of making those mistakes again. The medievalist aspect was meant to underline that this is a Dark Ages kind of approach to take, hoarding knowledge in monasteries while the world wallows in illiteracy and poverty. Without the isolationism and culturally regressive elements,
I mean, who really wants to play Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 anyway?
The Brotherhood of Steel in the Pentagon are just knights in a castle. Their attitude and role in the fiction is pretty much interchangeable with any given fantasy setting. It diminishes the world building to do it this way, because so much of what makes Fallout unique as a setting is its interest and willingness to engage with actual history, making historical reference, creating ironic historical parallels. Fallout 3's Brotherhood is narratively functional. The story needed some cool-looking good guys, and here they are. The Brotherhood and their power armor is such an iconic image for Fallout that it becomes burdened slightly by the lore of it. The fact that the whole original intention of power armor was to symbolize imperial excess, that war never changes. It's always just going to be kings and peasants and knights, no matter if you have laser rifles or not. It is a deliberate ironic contrast, advanced technology used to move culturally backwards. The problem with the message is that the messengers do, in fact, look very cool and very badass in the power armor. From a marketing perspective, it is much easier to sell cool
you don't know it.
than it
You
is
don't know
to
it's
sell
possible.
an ironic symbol of moral
She met
bankruptcy.
Perry.
To make the Brotherhood of Steel more of a generic fantasy faction in Fallout 3 does much to uncomplicate the image of the badass in power armor, to make it more part of player empowerment in Wasteland fashion than a narrative irony. It turns, "this is where we're going if we're not careful," into, "this could be you," which is something, admittedly, not everyone really cares about anyway. Power armor is such a striking, iconic design that it has the obvious capacity to sell thousands of t-shirts, millions of promises about a player's arc of progression through the game. By the time we get to Fallout 76, power armors are some of the biggest carrots at the end of the longest sticks, requiring wild time investment, resource investment, and sometimes even cash investment to acquire as whole suits. It becomes not just a collectible, but a primary means of player expression through the light MMO elements, showing off your style and your accomplishments. There's arguably more value and utility to doing it that way than to focus on the initial dark sarcasms from a marketing perspective. So goes the power armor, so goes the Brotherhood. Fallout 3 makes the changes it does because it perceives more utility to a friendly, uncomplicated Brotherhood than it perceives in an isolationist, rigidly dogmatic Brotherhood. Those guys can be outcasts and play outside. Fallout 3 is excellent at identifying the things that are visually iconic about the earlier franchise, repackaging them in a shiny modern 3D. I disagree with these decisions frequently as creative choices, but as business choices, the decision to recycle so many familiar elements, no matter how awkwardly they fit in with the new setting, was a resounding success. Even people who have never played a Fallout game are often casually familiar with its imagery and iconography, and at least some of that is due to Bethesda's efforts to make those things more palatable and
I've never
easily
blocked an
accessible.
overhead in my
Things meant
life.
to be enjoyed uncritically
That's
and
the
not just
problem.
as symbolic dark humor, known, I guess, in some circles as the
Earth
"hey,
is better than
cool
me."
robot" effect. This trend of simplifying the message in preference of marketing
I'm
the
doing
image
every
in Fallout
time.
begins here in 3, and it marks the sharpest divide between Fallout 3 and the classic style.
Hey,
But again, a little
overheads.
perspective helps.
It's over.
There
I
is
block
not
it.
a
It's
single
over for me.
billboard for Balls
Which is
Guarana
relatively
in the
British
whole
territory,
game.
rather
As
than
much as these
3
disappointments
ones, I
can
can make them
sting,
more mutant
there
ones.
is so much more selling out that could have happened, and the ways in which Fallout 3 did sell out were rather tactical and clever in the long
Amber.
run of reestablishing the brand. For the Brotherhood of Steel,
I've
sanding
been
down
reading
the
along
meaning
your
and the lore a
conversation
little works well
between
enough.
Amigo.
For the Enclave, it doesn't really work at all. At the halfway point in the main plot, the Enclave shows up to take over the water purification
just throw a
project,
body
and your
in, like,
dad
the
sacrifices
water
himself
somewhere.
to slow them down. The game tries to make this bittersweet by giving you a moment with your dad prior to this where he gives you feedback on your adventure, determining whether he's proud of you or disappointed.
Yep.
This could be a very interesting summing up of any number of player choices and player attitudes. It could feel surprisingly personal if the player's choices were meaningfully reflected back to them. But it all boils down to one binary choice in the very first town. At the
Oh,
center
wow.
of Megaton is an undetonated atomic bomb. That's where the town gets its name from. Some folks worship the bomb, but the sheriff would prefer it if you disarmed the thing instead before it hurts somebody. The skill requirements to disarm it are pretty low, it's not hard to manage, and you get a free house for it on top of a nice little stack of experience. Solving the quest the right way is basically trivial, it's convenient as hell, and so rewarding to a player that there's not really any element of selflessness or heroism involved. Solving the quest the bad way is a lot more work. You've got to venture far away across the wide open wasteland to Tenpenny Tower. Tenpenny's fixer is the one who hires you in Megaton to rearm the bomb instead of disarming it. So what's Tenpenny's plan? What does he gain? What's his angle? He doesn't have one, actually. He just doesn't care for the town and thinks it would be better if he could no longer see it from his tower. It's not even that this is silly or simplistic that's the problem, though it is both those things. It's that it's empty. It is villainy without purpose. It would have been so easy to write up some kind of actual disagreement between Tenpenny and Megaton, to create some kind of motivation for all that murder. To just do it for a rich man's whimsy doesn't make much any kind of sense at all narratively. It only makes sense mechanically. Fallout 3 defines pretty much everything in terms of player freedom. Good and evil don't mean anything complex for the narrative. They are seen instead as equally viable play styles. Being good means engaging positively, saying yes to things, supporting the fiction in front of you. Evil means ignoring the fiction and behaving callously toward it instead. Evil is meant to be fun in Fallout 3. It isn't about being sad or serious, it's about being self-conscious about the fact that this is indeed a simulation and no one here is real but you. It's not a narrative approach so much as a vector for player nihilism and apathy towards the narrative, giving players an alternative to skipping the dialogue by letting them reject and belittle the characters directly. Why blow up the whole town of Megaton? Well, why not, motherfucker? Who cares? Look at that big boom! Woo! It's a choice entirely contingent on not suspending your disbelief and taking the game world seriously. If there was some kind of reason for setting the bomb off, that would be one thing, but since the actual narrative is that it's just for funsies, it doesn't even work for the characters who are genuinely trying
we're
to
edging on reality
role-play
in ways that are much more
It doesn't
uncomfortable than we
adequately
know.
address the question at the root of most actual
You're
villainy,
absolutely
which
right,
is,
Amber.
what's in it for me? So to have this choice be the one that dear old dad bases his approval of you as a person off of feels almost insulting. There is nothing there for him to really be proud of if you solved it the good way, and if you solved it the bad way instead, it's pretty much established that he wouldn't give a shit about what Liam Neeson has to say about it. This empty, extreme dichotomy between
that's
good
fair,
and evil
actually.
extends to the main plot and climax. The Enclave doesn't have motivations any more clear or rational than Tenpenny did. It's the same kind of deal as they had in Fallout 2. Kill the mutants, take over the world. The twist is that they're run by an intelligent supercomputer pretending to be President Eden. The only thing saving the whole plotline from being completely turgid is casting choice. Malcolm McDowell can make the stupidest possible roles fun with his willingness to go hard in small parts. Having him be a villainously patriotic machine dictator is an inspired casting choice. The computer asks you to sabotage the water purifier instead, poisoning the river, ruining the chance of any future for the region not based on Enclave dependency. But then, what do you get? Again, the evil choice is weirdly lacking in compensation. You aren't getting paid more than the good option, you aren't being rewarded with more power than the good option. The option only exists because it is the exact binary opposite thing to do from purify the river. There's no dramatic tension to resolve between competing visions for the future, just one last big chance to either invest in the Wasteland's fiction or reject it. Why kill everyone and poison the river? Even something as simple as for money works. Just about the only thing that doesn't work is for kicks. Tunnel snakes rule, man. Fuck drinking water. It's not drama, it's just simulational nihilism. Another
Also,
detail
did
of
the
game that
video
bother people is that your
pause,
character has to
like,
sacrifice
sort of,
themselves
Yeah,
to
yeah.
use the
all the hell-
purifier.
Yeah,
Your
okay,
mutant
cool. I'm
friend
glad to
could
know
do
that
it,
his
but he
game
refuses,
crashed
saying
there.
that it's
Yeah,
your fate.
okay,
Or
that's
you could use,
actually
like,
a thing
rat
that
X or
happens
something.
in the
Honestly,
game.
the thing that makes it frustrating is that the game used
These
fate
games
to
crash
call
very
attention to
easily.
the fact that this is a scripted
Oh,
moment
God.
outside your control. The Broken Steel
That's
DLC
amazing, man. I'm glad we
retcons
got
this, trying
a
to strip
peek into
away
the
those
world.
complaints. But I feel it's important to bring up what
Also-
once was, because even if
also-
it was bad as a narrative climax, it's actually extremely fitting
What's
as
up?
the climax of all the accumulated
Alright,
disappointments
this is actually
of
really
plot and
good.
dialogue.
Oh.
A symbolic sacrifice you're not allowed to sidestep because of fate. In other words, because the simulation is over and your role is complete. Your player character was never a real character. They were an artificial device. That's why they must abide by fate, when any real human being who actually found themselves with agency in that situation would probably, try a couple things first. Fallout 3 is a tremendous pioneer in defining
Basically,
player
you have
agency in
a
an
super
open world
mutant
game,
friend called
but it really
Forks,
has the
and
most minimal
to
possible
purify the
narrative
water, you
agency.
have to
For
dump
my money,
yourself
the
in
worst
just
part
so
of
much
Fallout 3
radiation
is
that you
always
die.
the ending.
Oh.
Fallout 3's joy and
Forks
beauty
is
is in the
completely immune to
exploration and
radiation.
the experience in
But
the
yet-
player-directed simulation. What it narrows from this wide open freedom
if you
into
say that you're
linear
going to
set-piece
do it, but then
theatrics, it
suddenly
loses
think,
almost
oh no,
everything
wait,
that set it
Forks,
apart
you could do it.
positively
He
from
goes,
Fallout
no,
1 and
it's
2.
your destiny.
Instead,
And it's
all
like,
that's
what?
left is the
No.
void of what it abandoned.
No.
Narrative reactivity
We
and
could have an
complexity.
all
And
everyone
if I
win
often feel
situation.
disappointed that Liam
What
Neeson
the
only
fuck?
cared about your one singular choice, I feel flat out mad that the epilogue
You can also
comes
get a
down to
ghoul
just
buddy
about
as
the
well?
same binary simplicity.
Is that
Part of this thing is that, while rare, there are absolutely some quests in Fallout 3 that are complex enough to be worthy of Liam Neeson's approval or disapproval. Two in particular stand in interesting contrast: Agatha's Song and Oasis. Agatha's Song is a quest that involves almost no choice at all, yet it plays on classic Fallout themes in a way that's actually very in keeping with the earlier games. Agatha is the violinist I mentioned
That's a
earlier.
really
When you
good
meet her, though, she's just
explanation
a
of
hermit. Music
anything.
is missing
Spit
from
and
her life.
prayers. I'm
If
stealing
only
that for
she had her
something.
great-great-grandaunt's Stradivarius. But alas, that instrument disappeared with its owner into a vault and was never seen again. The premise is melancholy, with a wistful suggestion of all that was
Does
lost.
MVC2 ever crash,
And the
though?
hook
On
is
PS2,
intriguing.
I assume,
A
is the
whole
version you're
vault
talking
with
about?
an implicit treasure at the bottom. Even better, it's not a point-to-point quest.
He's
The
healed
vault
by
is
radiation
well
for the
and
most
truly
part. Who's-
lost. So you've
Check out
actually
the
got
follow
to
your
go
every
downtown
command who
to Vault
still
Tech
says
corporate
no.
headquarters and look it up on the mainframe, which also helps you find all the other vaults and their various mysteries, most of which are quite good, especially in comparison to the blander vaults of Fallout 4.
That's so
Another
silly.
vault database in the Pentagon ruins even identifies the nearby Vault 76 for the first time in the franchise, laying the groundwork in a couple sentences for what will eventually become a whole-ass spin-off title. Vault 92, though,
On
is a
Dreamcast?
particularly insidious
I have
and sad
not seen that
experiment.
yet. That's really
Everyone in the
fucking
vault
funny.
was
Holy
chosen
shit.
for their musical talent and their auditory sensitivity. And then a tone was introduced
The
over the
ending signs
loudspeakers,
just call you out
under
on
the
it?
range of hearing.
What?
So close to the range of
Fuck
hearing
your
as to
freedom.
be maddening. In logs and skeleton tableaus, you see how these artists were driven to incoherent madness by this small, ceaseless noise. At the bottom of all that death is the practice room where Agatha's great-great-grandaunt played her final song. She put the violin back in its case and never returned. So here it is, an irreplaceable fragment of long-lost culture, the likes of which will never be seen again. You can sell it for cash, or you can just give it to Agatha. With all this backstory behind it now, Agatha's radio takes on extra emotional depth. It suggests loss greater than the warbling violin strings can alone convey. Even better, you can trade her some blank sheet music for the best revolver in Fallout 3 if emotional rewards aren't really your jam. Oasis, on the other hand, is a quest with an unusually large amount of choice, but which interacts awkwardly with traditional Fallout themes and characters. Hidden at the top of the map is a mountainous area with one single point of entry. Around this narrow canyon is plant life, some of the only living flora in the entire game. There's a small cult here, and they worship the great tree, who is, of course, good old Harold. In Fallout 2, Harold made a number of jokes about the tree growing out of his head, who he named Bob. In Fallout 2, and to a lesser degree Fallout 1, Harold delights in fucking with people. He says some really dark stuff, like threatening to skin you alive, just to see you squirm. It's not enjoyable having been partially melted. You gotta make the best of it, somehow. Naming his growth Bob and inventing a contentious relationship with it was part of characterizing Harold as unpredictable and strange, not really an element of lore. Fallout 3 seizes on the Harold-Bob dynamic and makes it the whole of his character. While the character sounds so much better than the squeaky 2004 appearance, Fallout 3's tree-bound Harold speaks too slowly to come across with the sharp sarcasm that he had back in the day. Bob has become the whole of him, literally, and herein lies the dilemma. Harold's FEV infection and the Bob growth are some of the only sources of potential reforestation in the wasteland. To side with the tree minders is, in some ways, a good ending, from a conservation standpoint anyway. But Harold is miserable. He wants to die, not remain a prisoner of his own rapidly mutating body. To side with him is also a good ending because it's the compassionate and humane thing to do for him, since he's asking you to do it. The evil route, of course, is to discover his fear of fire and burn Harold alive. Oasis is one of the only side quests in the game that actually creates this kind of nuance and its definitions of good, if not its definitions of evil. And yet it's in service to just an awkward characterization of the franchise staple who didn't really have to be in the game at all. Harold being included is like the Brotherhood of Steel or the Enclave.
I mean,
he's a
same and
familiar
true.
reference, but unlike those factions, Harold
If Kirby
doesn't
came
work
in my
well with
woods and
just
wanted to step on
starting
my
fresh with
roots
no
like that,
prior
I have a
knowledge.
lot of words, some choice
His
words for the
inclusion in
little pink
Fallout 3
puffball.
is too gimmicky to please either those that know him as a character or those that don't. Oasis is a good quest and a waste of a perfectly
Also,
good
I don't know where
character
actually
at the same
where the
time.
endpoints are.
Agatha's
Okay, we're
song
close, but
in
not
tone
damn.
and
Okay, because I'm
content
like, this could
reminds
be
me that
DLC, and I
despite
just don't know
everything
it.
that's changed with the Fallout 3,
Nope.
This core of the older Fallouts still exists in scattered fragments within Fallout 3. Oasis reminds me that these changes are more or less permanent. The Harold I knew is gone now, consumed by the thing that grew so verdantly around him. There are no epilogue slides for Fallout 3, not exactly. There are 3 possible narrations, and some of the pictures that narration overlays are variable, but this is far from traditional Fallout epilogue slides. It's based entirely on your karma score, good, neutral, or evil. Absolutely none of the specific quest outcomes matter. Sure, solving them one way or another is what skews your karma in a given direction and changes some of the pictures, but it all smooths out in the aggregate score. You can blow up Megaton, but if it's the only time you choose to be a jerk, only the dialogue with your dad will call you out for it. It just becomes a temporary valley among the peaks of your heroism. Epilogue slides in the previous games didn't just validate player choice in the narrative, they motivated player choice. They drove it. It was the epilogue's narrative validation that made it feel like player choice lives on after the game ends. That kind of narrative free will is one of the things that makes games so unique as an artistic medium.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was
In
really
no
impressed
other
about that,
medium is
about
the story
Fallout
so
1 and 2,
strongly
about picking and
co-authored
piecing
with the
like
audience.
what you accomplished or
The
not
first two
accomplished,
Fallout
and then
games
throwing
came from
that
a
into the
traditional
ending
tabletop
salad.
role-playing games where choice and self-characterization was everything.
Revenge
Without
on
a story,
Wispy
it's
Woods.
just graph paper and dice.
I think Wispy Woods needs
Fallout
revenge
3
on
is
Kirby.
built without adhering to the traditional
No,
tabletop
don't let
influence.
Wispy
Story
Woods
isn't
suffer
everything.
more.
Story is just one more function of the simulation, and hardly the most important function at that. By eliminating the ending slides and creating 3 endings based on broad generalizations of player behavior, the game can more easily allow for chaos and unforeseen outcomes within the open world. It's equally accurate.
Oh yeah,
whether the player
he
spent
slayed
20
him
hours
physically
exploring the
and
world or
verbally
200.
in Kirby's
It's
Avalanche.
just deeply impersonal that way. It's like the difference between talking to a counselor and reading a horoscope. Personalized feedback from an authoritative source is inherently more meaningful than squinting at a vague statement for a couple of minutes and concluding that, yeah, it kinda sounds like you, right? In a certain way, that's just as well. Many of the side quests are too absurdist or silly to warrant a follow-up anyway. If Tenpenny never had an actual motivation for blowing up Megaton, what matters
God
is
damn.
what happens to him afterwards? You likely killed him during the course of a different side quest anyway. Are you really that curious if the vampire folk and Arafu continue to get along? Did you perhaps want to know if Moira's Wasteland Survival Guide is selling well? Fallout 1 and 2 had plenty of quests to
Since
trigger
Kirby's
to come back
Avalanche.
around to as well, but if you look back,
And basically
it is
only Kirby's
obvious
Avalanche.
How all of the regional conflicts in Fallout 1
You
and
should
2 were
watch the
designed with
cutscenes for
player
Kirby
involvement in
Avalanche.
mind. They
Kirby's just a
automatically
fucking
connect through
jerk.
good and bad endings. The epilogue slides unite the side stories by zooming out to the long-term big picture and showing how all the disparate pieces are part of the same puzzle. Fallout 3's simulation.
I'm not gonna lie, watching everyone explode in this game has been
over,
very
it's
fucking
over.
funny,
The story
actually.
is done because you decided to beat
Yeah.
the game. Its world does not exist when you're not looking at it, and it has no real interest in pretending like it does. That's why the infinite play non-ending of the DLC feels better. The game ends when you're tired of it, not because fate has decreed you make the final sacrifice. Fallout 3 is amazing when it's non-linear and non-verbal. It's roughest when it feels like a poorly written third-person shooter, which, unfortunately, is the bulk of the first DLC experience. Operation Anchorage
now we're
isn't
in the
bad
DLC.
or poorly
Okay,
made
now we're
or low
DLC.
effort.
Okay,
In many
gotcha.
respects,
Yep.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, Sidjo. Kirby never talks except Kirby's Avalanche, where he's a jerk. They didn't even make him cute. They just made him an asshole, a trash-talking asshole.
God, I was talking to VPriz yesterday about yesterday, or was it this morning? I'm not entirely sure, but just the idea that Kirby's saying actual human words is just deeply unsettling to me.
It's both like deeply unsettling in that regard, but it's also just like the choice words that he has as well, and his actions are just like, is this what you're thinking about all the time? That when we don't make you say human words, like God,
It's American Kirby.
Is as an American
It's a Kirby with tude.
Is
Kirby with tude.
Badass Kirby with anger attitude. Does he say
It's
angry
the
on that
Kirby
cover
that came
box?
in and kicked the ass of all those bikers. Yeah.
Kirby. I know there's like box art of Kirby who's like some like I think there's like a difference in like the U.S. version and like I don't know which game it was, but the U.S. version and Japanese version where one of he's just like angry Kirby, but I don't know if he's like that Avalanche or not. Let's see which Kirby is that. This is a happy Kirby.
Possibly go wrong.
Kirby. Okay, so yeah, Kirby's Avalanche / Kirby's Ghost Trap is happy Kirby. But he does not. He sure does not seem happy in game. He has stuff to say. He has trash talk. I love that game though to death though. Maybe I'll play it on stream someday when I don't feel like being awake. We'll just go play all Puyo Puyo with likes for a day.
Wow, that's a new series.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a very uninteresting one, unlike the Punch Out series and Punch Out likes series. But God. Go ahead.
Did you ever get Thunder Joe to work?
I haven't tried since yesterday, but I think I know what the problem might be, actually. I just forgot to try it this morning because I was doing a bunch of cleanup on stream stuff because I'm like, I need to save these VODs before I lose them. Which that takes forever.
Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, yeah, hey, by the way, if you haven't saved your VODs before you lose them, this goes to everyone who streams out there. If you have some VODs out there that you like to save on your channel, some clips you want to grab, we're running out of 2023's opportunity to be able to save those, so make sure you do it.
Do highlights actually get deleted after a while?
So far, no in my case.
Okay, good. Yeah, so same here. I haven't actually checked back so far, but yeah.
Yeah, I still have my stuff that mind you, I didn't start saving until like late 2020 because I thought they auto-saved. Because back when I first streamed or was doing stream stuff, it was like, oh, you just click this button and your VODs get saved. And then somewhere along the line, you know, the 4 or 5 years after that, it was like, no, you got to actually save it by hand. And it's like, that's fair, but also a lot of shit is gone as a result. So no one knows I played Danganronpa.
Dang.
Yeah, Danganronpa's gone. Celeste is unfortunately gone, but that was actually my fault.
Oh, you just play them again.
I kind of want to play Celeste again, honestly. Like, that gives me a great excuse to stream and play Celeste again. And I'd be very happy if I got to do that. I don't need to play Danganronpa again. I'm good.
And, you know, Celeste 64 comes out, so yeah, just make a small series of it.
Oh, that's true. I can play Celeste 64. You're right. Oh, we touch to the end.
Full of good ideas.
Yeah, you are full of good ideas. And if they want to see more good ideas of you, what more cool good ideas do you do on your end of the world?
None.
Fuck you. Speak more.
I don't have good ideas. I just have pretty good art, some substandard Donkey Kong speedruns, and I play a lot of Llama Lana, and maybe I'll play a different game every now and then.
Hell yeah!
What you should do is follow and basically just give a lot of love to this cool guy called Ryudo.
I think you meant to say Dr. Dubs there, but I understand.
No.
Yeah.
Which one of us is more handsome?
You.
Fuck.
Fuck. Just that small fuck. God, your reaction to stuff is so fucking strong. I've always envied that about you.
Shit.
Damn.
You already hit me with the no you card. You already hit me with the reverse.
Why did I carry reverse for the reverse? I was a fool. But that's that. Literally, if you have not followed Dr. Dubs, absolutely wonderful human being to check out on their channel and everything like that. If you like vibing out to art, or kind of like you were saying earlier, like you are very, very good at having like that kind of background noise and just very pleasant to listen to whenever you're kind of working or focusing on something. It's just an absolute ASMR aspect that I really like a lot.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of that is because I'm not talking, but, you know, enough self-deprecation. Also, yeah, I do pride myself a little bit on just being a little more chilled out and ASMR-y, so, yeah. But I do just want more people to come in and talk, because it's the only way I stay awake half the time, because it just sends myself to sleep, and it sucks.
That's also fair. I do use you as like background noise and chilling while I'm doing something way too often.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I stream pretty much early mornings for the majority of Americans. But honestly, if I'm gonna like sort of shout someone else out actually, and I think we should, as a suggestion, we should go raid him right now.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Python still needs a lot more money because he's still got a bike 3,000 miles.
Yep, I have the full intention to raid Wobbly, who is still driving a car in
Hell
game
yeah, he is.
before
Damn
driving
right
a
he is.
motorcycle out of game.
He has been driving that car technically for about, well, if his stream's like 12 to 16 hours long, he has been driving that car in that game for probably about 2 days now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like we were at like literally like 48 to 60 hour range of driving this car, and there's still comedic things that happen with the car along the way as well. So it continues to be just absolutely perfect. But yeah, if you have any spare dollary dues, subs, or otherwise to continue making him drive a car, then definitely give him some love as well. But as for me, you know, I'll be back tomorrow playing some beat 'em ups with Boyx, and I'll be at my normal stream time. If any folks are new here, you can always check out my stream schedule. I actually keep that I'm pretty organized in these parts here, so you can check out the stream schedule. It should convert to your time zone, so you know what time I'm starting. I think it's 6:30 p.m. Eastern, but don't quote me on that. I have to actually check in with Boyx. So we'll be doing some beat 'em ups, and then Tuesday I'll be on Minimash stream. He starts at 2 p.m. Eastern, and then Wednesday I'm gonna have some sort of long Valentine's Day stream. I figured out what I wanted to do, so I'm just gonna leave it as a surprise as I usually do. But it's not gonna be anything wild, crazy, or anything like that. It's just like, you know, if love's the theme, I think I can rope this very weak reason to replay a game in. So I'm gonna do that for myself. And then I'll be back on Thursday for something. And then I'll be back on Saturday for another long stream for something. All the good stuff, baby. But until then, you know, we'll watch more of this next Sunday if you want to catch part 4 as we get into the DLC and New Vegas. But up until then, take care of yourselves. Have a good one. Stay cute as always. Be safe out there. And until next time, you gotta imagine I'm doing the peace sign. Peace.
In my heart, I was doing it.
Ah, that makes me feel so good that I have enough repetition.
Indeed. Laters, everyone.